shining late. I just don't put pressure on myself, you know. I just show up. I know I am the product, and I just talk.
All right. Okay. I think we are going to be live very, very soon. Let me
Sure.
see. 1, 2, 1, 2,
Will
1,
Will
2.
I see something change when we go live? I'll just be looking
All
in
right.
this
We
Discord
are
window here.
we are live.
When we go live, I'll just be looking
All
in
right.
this
We
Discord
are
window here. Welcome, welcome.
we are live. All right. Okay.
Welcome.
Hello,
Going live on
guys.
Twitch.
This is episode 8 of the Tuesday tournament reviews. In this series, I have a guest who brings me a tournament, and we go through the tournament together. We discuss all the questionable hands, and this week I have a very, very special guest. I'm very happy and excited to have him on stream. James Whittet. He used to be my mental coach in Bitby staking, and he is a professional life coach, if I'm not wrong. Yeah, I think he is. But he also plays some tournaments. So we are going to go through his 120k score he had in May. And we are going to discuss some strategy, but also we are going to talk a lot about all the mental challenges a poker player can have in their career. So, yep, very well welcome, James. Could you please introduce yourself a little bit better, more detailed?
Yeah,
Where are you located
sure.
at the
What's up,
moment?
guys? I'm in Playa del Carmen, Mexico, so I'm very fortunate. I'm looking at my monitor, and behind it, I can see a view of not quite the beach, but some trees and some nature and skyline. So I'm very, very happy to be here in what is otherwise the winter from people like me who I grew up in New York. So I'm very happy to be somewhere in sunlight. I've got my dog here with me, and yeah, I am looking forward to looking through this tournament. I haven't checked all the hands myself, actually. It's a very busy time running through the scoop, and I'm happy to have this opportunity to do that. A little bit nervous. I might be a little bit shy. Like I've never had. I don't know how many people we'll have today, but I've never had, hundreds of people or over 100 people looking at my play at one time with my whole cards revealed. I'm sure I punted it somewhere or made a play that wasn't solver approved, but I'm kind of okay with that. I am somewhat retired as a poker player. I mean, I play Sundays and I play series. I was a professional from like 2008 onward. I played high stakes sit and goes, then I transitioned to high stakes PLO. Well, actually, like micro stakes PLO up to like relatively high stakes. And then finally, I started playing tournaments. But mostly over the last 4 or 5 years, I've been a professional coach. I worked with Bitby staking for the most of the time that stable existed for like 3.5 years, and I worked briefly with Raise Your Edge for a little while, and now I'm mostly working at my own program, Poker Mindset Mastery, which maybe I'll get a chance to tell you guys a little bit more about. And I also work with people outside of poker. I work with a lot of people in sports betting or entrepreneurs and stuff like this, people in crypto, and any career that involves a lot of variance, or anyone who has a life that seems to involve a lot of variance. I've generally been very good at helping people. A lot of my clients like that I've been through it too. I've, as you'll see, a six-figure score here. I've had six-figure downturns, and I've kind of been in the thick of it for 10, 15 years now. So it's been able to give me a unique perspective on helping people in kind of our lines of work, if that makes sense.
All right, that sounds.
I see myself now. I'm full screen.
All right. Yeah, I tried to make your face a little bit bigger. That was I was working on. Yeah, just a little bit. Yeah, there you go.
Maybe I should style my hair before this. Oops.
It is at least as good as mine, so no worries. Okay, let's see if you have anyone in the chat already, or everyone is late. I think we have Anna so far. She's my assistant, so hopefully some regulars will show up. Normally we have around 20 to 30 people watching, so you shouldn't be all that nervous, but given you are a special guest, I expect a lot more guys showing up later on. So, let's talk about the tournament first, and let's leave the more exciting mental stuffs to the middle of the stream. So let's just jump into it. For starters, I use CheckDecide. I'm the founder of CheckDecide, actually. I have a poker background, 14-year career as a poker player. I was one of the steadiest winners in mid-stakes tournaments. And I also had some success in live tournaments, and I coached around 200 players already. And my goal is to help you become a steady winner yourselves. I don't have to help too much to James, because he already has a very, very steady bowler game, which we will see very soon. But CheckDecide helps you find some minor leaks in your game by reviewing hands very, very quickly. So we can be very efficient with leak finding. Basically, how CheckDecide works is James uploaded this tournament. I visited his profile and I went through all the hands from his perspective. So whenever there is a decision point, I face the same exact decisions as he did when playing the hand. So let's say I check here, then we can see that there is a happy emoji because my check matched his original decision. And even if I mismatched, the hand continues according to his original play. So in every decision point, I have to make the same decisions as he did, or facing the same action buttons as he did. And folding, and the hand is over. And as you can see in this hand, there is not much to discuss because I matched his decisions 100%. But as I reviewed his whole tournament, and reviewing all the 360 hands took me around 2 hours only, so it was pretty fast. We can see by selecting my name, which is Valdemar Kwaysser, we can see which hand I disagreed with his play, so we can be very efficient only discussing those hands. But this also means that we are not going to talk about many of his great plays, because we have not much to gain in those hands. So if you are interested in all the hands, then visit James Whittet's account on CheckDecide, and this tournament is available for those guys who signed up through his link. So this is with affiliate privacy. Maybe he will change this later.
Yeah, I can change the privacy. I don't care.
No.
Just do me a favor. If you think I played my hand terrible, don't send me a message on Instagram, because I had somebody do that, and I was just like, well, they're like, you did this, and it was like, I don't know, I think I limp shoved ace queen covering someone in a bounty and like broke their heart when they had kings. It was for, like, it probably is not solver approved, but this guy like sent me a message on Instagram pretending to be somebody else and asking me why I played my hand the way I did, and I was just like, man, how solid is your mental game if you're like writing to a retired poker player who busted you out of a tournament, asking him like, why you played a hand a certain way? I'm like, bro, I think you gotta let that go, man. It's a $300 tournament. Anyway, if what was I gonna say? Luigi, I can't actually see your screen. Am I in the wrong place? I see just myself in our Discord window, like full screen.
Yeah, in Discord, that's perfectly fine. You should only see.
So where should I go to be able to see your screen? I should go to the Twitch broadcast.
Twitch
okay.
Yeah, CheckDecide.
Yeah,
right, we have Adrian on board. He's a huge regular, both in the stream and in our Discord channel. Very welcome. Please ask any of your questions. Adrian is an aspiring poker player. A few months ago, he had quite a crazy game. Actually, a very enjoyable game, like a huge spaz, I can say. But in the latest weeks, he improved a ton, and now he is getting more and more solid. And I think he's on a very good path to become a real professional player with a very creative game. Yep. All right. So let's just jump to the first hand where I disagreed. Actually, I made a note of the very first hand because it looks like you later edged a bounty tournament, which is normally not advised. You are.
So I actually won. Am I frozen?
No, you are not.
Okay. I actually won a satellite. so that's why it shows me as a late registration. And I think satellites are generally kind of maybe not super plus EV for these kind of tournaments, right? Because like they're bounties and you shouldn't play like from too late reg. But it's also a series event, and it was basically the satellites were quite soft. Also because I think a lot of regulars don't play the satellites because they don't want to late reg the bounty tournament. So yeah, that's why I was a late registration.
Oh, okay.
You'll actually also see me sit out for several hands on day 2 because I thought the tournament started at a later time. So you'll see a couple of funny things in those regards.
All right. Yeah. I actually made a note that you may have like focus issues, but if you just if you were just late, then it's understandable. Okay. The very first hand where we have some little thing to discuss is this pocket fives. Where the cutoff opened, and normally in a non-bounty tournament, this is a fine reshove which you made. But in a bounty tournament, are you familiar like how many chips your original bounty represents? Like in this situation?
I know that it's like it depends how close to the. I think it depends how close we are to the money, because I know that like when we're quite close to the money, the bounty like percentage goes up. It becomes like 40%. But generally, like what the rough math is to, take the starting, like how many chips I have and like the starting bounty. I don't know. I think you should explain it. Actually, I think you can probably explain it much better than I can.
Yeah, like
I know it's like probably like 2 extra big blinds here. I think, right?
No,
like rough math. It's a couple.
No, as this. Like there used to be some debate, and actually there is still some debate going on, like how the bounty should be calculated. A very easy rule of thumb is to take roughly 30% of the starting stack for the starting bounty, and increase the chips proportionally if the bounty goes up. So if someone has double the original bounty, then you should take 60% of the starting stack, etc., etc. And as we get close to the final table, where you actually have a chance to eliminate everyone in the everyone left in the tournament, then this percentage can go up to over 40% or somewhere around 40%. If you take these rules of thumb, then you probably do better than at least 50% of the field. So just go by the 30% of the starting stack for every starting bounty at the start, and later increase it a little bit. So in this case, it means that you started with 100k, and therefore the bounties are like close to 10 big blinds. And with 10 big blinds bounty, I assume that most of the guys with a bigger stack in this spot will raise call you with like almost all the Broadway hands.
Anything they opened, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and then given that you still have 2 other guys behind you, and you don't really have any blocker value, I think this can become a losing shove. I'm not saying it's like terrible by any means, because the cutoff will open really wide, and you will have enough for equity, but probably very, very close. And if it's a soft tournament where there are a lot of recreationals who will punt to you and just burn money against you, then I would wait for a better spot and play this with a call. But it's really close.
Can we let me just see if I can recap what you said and see if I learned it well. Because it sounds like my understanding was like slightly hazy and perhaps slightly wrong. But basically, it's saying that the percentage of the bounties are worth goes from like 30% to about 40% as you approach the final table, and you have opportunity to knock more people out. So since the starting stack's 100k, my bounty is worth like 30k, and it becomes worth close to 40k. And since the big blind is 3k, that's 10x. Like 10x 3k is 30k, so it's about 10 big blinds. If we were closer to the final table, we'd be looking at 40k, but of course our blinds would be different. The blinds might be much higher, so it may actually only be like a couple of big blinds if the blinds are massively higher.
Yeah, this is how it goes. And also one thing which is worth mentioning is that in bounty tournaments, usually the gap between the first place and the second place is like quite huge, much
It's
bigger.
huge.
Yeah, much bigger than in normal tournaments. So this is more similar to a winner takes all tournament. Obviously, it's very far from a winner takes all, but it's a little bit more similar to winner takes all, which means that ICM pressure will be significantly lower than in a normal tournament, obviously, because you are rewarded for taking a risk because of the bounties.
Can I ask a couple more questions? Or have to move on?
Sure. No.
So, like, I was retired when bounty tournaments came out. So then when I started playing them, I dealt with like a unique set of problems that probably many of the viewers who are like semi-professional or not professional might also have dealt with, which is like this feeling that when you're not getting good hands, like these fives is like a bad rejam, right? Because you should just call me this whole range. But it's like you kind of don't have fold equity, and like you just got to kind of help you get dealt a hand. I've actually looked at HRC outputs for like what you can jam when you're getting called, and it's like quite a bit tighter than it would be in a regular tournament. But at some point, like if you don't play a hand, you just end up without chips at all. And I guess like you can just say, okay, well, I'll always have odds to defend my big blind, but it sometimes it seems like other players also will have the leak that they don't make enough adjustments for bounties. So like I'm not sure if this guy called or folded here, but like if he's supposed to call his own range, but he doesn't, like I think especially a lot of recreationals, I mean, if I can make this mistake, I assume other people can too. And a lot of people I think still play too close to non-bounty tournaments in bounty tournaments. And I've definitely seen, people jamming 8-7 suited in early position, and I've marked it as like bad because they should be getting called. But then I've asked myself, like, well, is it bad if they're not actually getting called the way they should be? So what's your approach? Do you try to assess, just like with ICM and these situations in general, like what's the actual ranges that everyone plays correct, and then how do those ranges adjust based on how I think people actually play?
Yeah, like this is a very, very good question. Actually, I took a few basic hands a few months ago, where all the hands were hands with 15 to 25 big blind stack, and um, and basic open situations with different hole cards. And I created a test on CheckDecide. I'll just put these hands into a package, and I asked some of my friends who play high stakes bounty tournaments to play these basic hands, like really just opening hands, like how they play it when they jam with 20 big blinds and tens, when they raise call with queens, when they jam with queens, when they like limp with ace king suited or whatever, and the results were like on a really wide scale, like there was basically nothing really to get from the results other than everyone is just playing by feelings, or I don't know, like there were so many different approaches, and probably yeah, it depends a lot on your reads on the population. So if you think, and you are probably right about that most of the recreational guys are just not willing to risk their stack on something like, I don't know, King Jack suited, they don't raise call this all in with, then this is a fine rejam. But if you are up against a guy who will probably do so, and most of the regulars will do so, then probably not that great a gem. I'm still not saying this is a bad gem, but this is much more closer than
Questionable, like
yeah.
not solver approved.
Yeah, like and as always, you should consider the strength of the field. Like in these tournaments, the average level of play is usually very, very low. Like I was always surprised how soft these $530 tournaments are, even on regular weekdays. And during the series, I can imagine that they are even more soft, and then you probably don't want to take very marginal jumps. But yeah, this is just my approach. I get what you say, that and I agree with that most of the guys just don't adjust to bounties well enough. But this also means that they are going to make raises later on where they are the smaller stack. They just keep raising offsuit broadways from the button with 25 big blind stack and 20 big blind bounty on their head, and then you can just rejam, like basically not looking at your card at all. So I would just be patient, waiting for a double up hand, and then you will have million opportunities to collect chips later on with huge plus EV. So this is my approach, but yeah, you can also gamble from the first hand and continue from there. But I think it's a little bit better to wait for massively plus EV spots as long as your tournament life is on the line.
Do we get to be results oriented and see what happened with my fives?
I think it just folded. Yeah. So this is.
So that's like, would you take a note there when he folds, since he like almost shouldn't have a folding range with me jamming? What did I jam?
No, I'm not saying he shouldn't
I jammed
have
30.
Like, yeah, he can open a lot of like small ace-x hands which just don't perform good enough.
He's not gonna call everything.
Yeah, not at all. Especially that you are no longer incentivized to rejam hands which you may rejam in normal circumstances, like Jack 10 suited is actually a fine rejam here, or King 10 suited, or those kind of weakish Broadway suited hands. They perform good as a rejam normally, but with reduced fold equity, they don't do good any longer.
So where would your cusp be here with pairs against like most players? Because I mean, you don't really want to flat fives here for, like 15, was it like, 15% of your stack. So I mean, sevens, I have to imagine you're shoving, even though it performs basically the same against Broadway hands. And like eights and nines, I mean, there's no other way to play them, right?
Yeah, like sevens, I think they are very fine rejams because the few extra pocket pairs they dominate. Because I imagine this guy always calling with sixes and fives. So therefore, your sevens will perform much better against him than your fives. So with sevens, definitely. With sixes, it's somewhat better. I would say like pocket fours is probably break-evenish in most of the situations in this spot without any read, and pocket fives is slightly plus EV. Pocket sixes are probably just fine to rejam. This would be my default estimation. But one thing I learned about bounty tournaments that I usually think too tight about them. So maybe I'm off, and this is still a fine rejam.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I've learned a heck of a lot in the first like 10 minutes. I think one of my biggest difficulties with bounty tournaments actually is how annoying it is to try to study them. So like I have HRC. I've been using HRC for 10 years. I feel like I'm very confident in that program. But like in order to review a bounty tournament, you have to like screenshot with Gyazo, and then it freaking opens Chrome while you're playing, like to like find the spot so you know the stack sizes and the bounties. And CheckDecide, as I can see, like makes it much easier that I can just play my tournament and focus on playing when I'm playing, and then I can review and work on my bounty game. And honestly, you run it through one or two tournaments and math every spot, you're going to be like 20-30% better at bounty math, if not more. I can see that like just by the end of today, I'm probably going to be like twice as good at bounty math as I was before, if not more. So this is great for me because I friggin' hate using Gyazo while I'm playing. It feels like absolutely like not optimal.
Yeah, like another thing about bounty tournaments is that it depends. Like it is a little bit like playing high ICM spots. Like as you are definitely familiar with ICM enough, that ICM is not like GPV when you just make the equilibrium play, and if your opponent makes a mistake, then the profit comes to you. This is not how ICM works. Obviously, if your opponent makes a call which he shouldn't have made, then it hurts you and it hurts him, and all the other guys benefit who stayed away from the hand. And this is a little bit similar with bounty tournaments, that you have to be very conscious about what you can expect from your opponent. If you can expect a guy to like call you with 100% of the hands, then some ridiculously loose plays like jamming king 4 offsuit or king deuce offsuit with 20 big blinds, actually pushing looser than in normal tournament with the short stack can be reasonable. But if your opponent just calls his normal ranges like in a normal tournament, then these kind of pushes can become losing plays. So there are a lot of weird things about bounty tournaments, and it is very, very far from solved. At least in practice, most of the regulars just play them by like pure feelings, and if you just know the basics, for example, I'm going to show you some easy to use Excel charts which like you can check some basic stuffs like let's say you have let's take this spot from the cutoff's point of view. So the cutoff makes an open raise to 2.2. The effective stack between the two of you is like 30, 31 or something. And the original pot before anyone put money in the pot was 2.5 because 9 times the bounty, the antes and the small blind and the big blind. And the bounty on the restealer, as we calculated, it is around 10 big blind because 30K-ish. Is that correct? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And the opener is blind, no, so we can leave that on 0. The restealer is blind, no, we can leave that on 0. And let's say like we can check a few hands. Like this is far from like 100%.
This is the restealer's exact hand that you put in the
No. This is these are different hands which you can consider raise calling in this spot. So I can type in like king jack offsuit, and then we can see like what kind
versus what range you can raise call it.
Yeah, versus what range we can raise call it. And if you can eliminate the guy and there is 10 big blind bounty on his head, then he needs to rejam 17% in this spot to make it a call with king jack off. If he switch to king jack suited, then he only needs to rejam something like 5s, 4s, some broadways, some ace-x hands, and then it's already a call. So as expected, somewhere around these suited broadways, these are going to be the threshold hands, which he cannot fold in most of in this spot. Yeah. So this is like not.
I was just gonna say, I would expect that like studying with something like this, like side by side, really efficient, quick study with like being able to review all your hands, just super, super effective. So you can then learn it in your mind to know what to do in game. And I think like maybe the most important notes to take in bounty tournaments is going to be like who plays correct and who doesn't, you know? And being really important, not to necessarily say like, oh, a lot of people take notes. Like I think we've talked about this back when I was a Bitby, but like take notes like, oh, this guy's good, this guy sucks, and like these are really not helpful notes. You got to take like notes like this guy, plays correct in bounties. This guy plays correct ICM in regular tournaments, but not bounties, or like too tight in bounties or too loose in bounties. Because that's your goal that helps you know how to play your hand, rather than like most people take notes to fulfill their ego. Like this guy's not as good as me, which is like the stupidest note you can take. It doesn't help at all.
Yeah. Like this was actually one of the biggest takeaways I had from the Bitby bootcamp we had in Barcelona. You remember probably.
Yeah.
I loved it a lot, and it was quite quite an eye opener for me that when you are together or close to guys who have like strong self-confidence, they don't try to create fame for themselves by kicking other guys down and like calling other regulars names. Like Patrick is especially strong in this. Like not ever talking down on anyone. Like always just be very precise, like what the leak is. So this is a nice guy, this is a regular who has this and that leak, and I'm going to try to exploit that leak by doing this and that. And no emotions, no talking down on the guy, just mentioning that he has this leak, and I would try to exploit it in this or that way. And then this is a very good approach. Let me switch back to this one. Looks like we lost the replayer. There it goes. All right.
No.
Are you lost?
Yeah, no, I'm here.
Okay.
This kind of reminds me of one of the things I learned as well in like learning how to kind of train poker players was this idea that in the beginning you try like to review all your hands. It's another ego thing, right? Like if I mark 20 hands, I got to review all 20 hands. That way I didn't miss anything. And it causes people just like, was fine as a push or not? No. Okay. Yes. Next. And that's not really like the best way that learning happens. And if you guys noticed, I asked a lot of questions. Like he basically like showed me I might have played a hand wrong, and like, you know, I was like, okay, well, what about? And it's not because I want to defend my position. Like Luigi's gonna be right way more than me. I'm not particularly good, but I want to learn the nuances. Like, okay, so if I had like 2 big blinds more, if the blind was like 2-4 instead of 15-3, how would that change things? And like, what would my range look like then? Well, what if I had 6s? What if I had 4s? Like, I used to be a successful Citgo player playing 10 big blind hypers, right? There was not a lot of post flop play, and I made quite a lot of money back in like the early days of poker, 2009, 2010. I mean, 6 figures playing 10 big blind hypers, which is crazy. And all I did was study ICM, and this is how I studied it. Was like I wouldn't just review all my hands. I mean, I try to do that too, but more importantly is my curiosity around the particular hand, like moving it 1 pip this way, 1 pip that way, okay, versus cutoff opening range versus hijack versus cutoff with 2 more big blinds versus hijack with 2 more big blinds, and learning how to like think like the matrix, if that makes sense. If you focus more on learning how to think like the matrix or think like the solver, like to know how the different variables contribute to one another rather than memorization, that's going to be the difference between, being very good and just being like, okay. I mean, it's a massive difference learning how to think like the matrix. If you can take it that away, I think that'd be super helpful.
Yeah, actually one of the most surprising things for me in BitB was like how clear and simple the biggest bowlers like Elmerix, Tommy, he thinks just really straight, simple. Like I'll take it as a compliment. He never would have said anything like, "This is what Solver says, so I'm going to do that." Can you imagine that from Tommy? Not really. No. He would say that.
He would say like, "Oh, Solver says this, and this guy's like that, and the stats are like this, so the compound like result is this."
Yeah. Or just really just pulling it down to pieces, like he is going to do that with those kind of hands which he's supposed to call, so that's why I'm going to over bluff or something like that, or that's why I'm going to use this not solver approved sizing, or like this kind of approach. And this is very, very important. I've had quite a few students who wanted to solve the whole game before ever trying to implement any exploitative strategies. So they were scared to try anything new before they could see the whole picture. And I actually had a few years in my career when I had the same approach, and those were the longest break-even periods in my career.
It's a great way to have a tiny edge because you don't know that you're secretly afraid of making mistakes. Work on your confidence, work on your security, and you'll like open the doors to much bigger edges. Because the truth is, if the correct way to play was just do what the solver says, like nobody should play, because the games are not beatable. The games are beatable because people do deviate, and if you know how they deviate and you know what to deviate, like if all you know how to do is what the solver says to do, and then some guy is way out of line, and you just do what the solver does, you're like, oh, I'll take the minimum profit here. And yeah, it's true, you do auto profit, but you auto profit like, pennies, like compared to what you could auto profit if you knew how to maximally exploit it. So, if you don't take low hanging fruit, you're, really kind of wasting your time.
Yeah. But in order to collect experience on the population tendencies, you actually have to try some weird bets, some weird lines. I'm not saying you should like go over the line without any logic behind, but you should try, you should experiment, you should say that, okay, I think this guy probably won't defend enough against this kind of small bet, because he should call with this and that combinations, and he will not do so. So I'm trying this small exploitative bluff or something like that. And if you see that it's working, or you tried it 5 times and it worked 3 times, then that's probably a very, very profitable bet. And if it doesn't, then you at least tried and you didn't lose too much. So this is a much better approach than just trying to solve everything and not actually experimenting before fully understanding the game, because nobody really fully understands unless you are named like Hexton or someone like that. All right, let's.
I think a lot of young players. Yeah, let's go to next end.
Huh?
We can go into mindset stuff later. I think a lot of young players think you're supposed to play without mistakes. And the truth is, if you're going to make mistakes every session your entire career, and mistakes are how you learn. Learning from other people's mistakes is great and can shortcut your learning. That's hopefully why you guys are here, right? You can learn from my mistakes, and using CheckDecide, you can learn from other people's mistakes, which means you don't have to make nearly as many to get the same amount of learning. But like, if you try to sit down and think you're supposed to play perfect poker and not make any mistakes, I mean, it's your mistakes are how you're going to learn, and if you're not afraid, one of the things that's harder to teach than the right ranges or the right way to think is actually how to be able to pull the trigger. If someone can pull the trigger, but they're doing it with the wrong ranges, you just like, oh, let me show you the math, why you should be like a little bit less loose or a little bit more loose, and like it's fixed. But if someone just can't pull the trigger, they have a read and they can't follow it, all they can do is do something they're sure will be right because they're too afraid of the conversation in their own mind should they try something and it be wrong, and it's like, oh my god, I made this massive mistake. Like, that player will gonna like put a glass ceiling on themselves. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I have the same experience. Like, if I see a student of mine taking an aggressive approach to the game, but just playing overly loose, making incorrect bet sizes, that's fine. It can be corrected very, very quickly. But I see someone playing a shy game, never really ready to risk his tournament life. That's a hard job for me as a coach to actually crack and correct, because those are very deeply in your mind. Like, obviously, like, we are, like, by evolution, we are grown up to avoid any kind of risk. So being a poker player, like, requires a special approach. Actually, I had a former classmate of mine, a girl. She is still very, very clever, super clever, quite pretty, charming. So I pictured her as an ideal student to groom as a female poker player who will actually crush the field, because she was extremely good in psychology. She was good at math. She was hardworking. So everything was ready to groom a super force female poker player, and it turned out that she was just not ready to have losing sessions, first of all, and also to actually take risk. And I'm not sure. Like, do you have any best practice on how to help these guys who just want to play too safe?
Yeah, I mean, I've got a funny story too.
sorry to interrupt, but we have some guys in the chat. Hattie, he's a regular. Welcome back to the show.
99 Problems. I feel like I know 99 Problems.
Yeah,
maybe not. I'm not sure.
Yeah, very familiar name. But anyway, welcome to the show, and also Fedor Poltz, welcome to the show. Great nickname. All right. Okay, you speak a little bit of Hungarian, right?
Yeah, it's probably not that good right now. I haven't been there in a year, but I do speak some.
Oh, okay.
Rocco still answers to Hungarian.
Good.
I mean, I'm trying to think what time of day it is there. Jónapot kívánok or Jó estét. It's Jó estét time, It's 7 p.m. for you. It's 1 p.m. for me.
Yeah, all right. Anyway, later we may try some language lessons, but I didn't want to interrupt you. Sure. Please continue. So what's your best practice for those who feel shy, who doesn't want to take enough risk?
So my entire approach to solving mental game problems is like all poker problems are like interpersonal issues being triggered by poker. So if you can't take a risk at the poker table, you're not going to solve that with like logic and math and reason, because that's not the issue. Isn't that it's wrong, or like the issue isn't that you don't logically know that you should go with it. It's an emotional issue. It's like my nervous system isn't letting me, right? Like my nervous system, my emotions, I feel frozen. And that's how mindset issues feel, because poker players are often super analytical, highly intelligent, and they're like, I don't want to be, it's not always the case, but it's quite common to be less aware about like the way your emotions work or the way that your nervous system works. And if you don't start to understand that stuff and start to learn how to move through anxiety or how to act in spite of resistance, it's not going to be solved by your brain. Poker players tend to be very mind identified. And like the quote says, you can't solve problems with the same level of consciousness that created them. You can't reason your way into taking a decision when the blockage is emotional. You have to learn how to work on it on the emotional level. And that's what mindset work really is. I mean, it's called mindset, but it's like we don't go in through the mind, because if we were just going in through the mind, we wouldn't get anywhere. You just have a really great understanding of what your problems are and why they're there, but you wouldn't actually be able to solve them. And that's why Elliot wrote us hypnotherapy, right? That's why I work with meditation and different modalities and breath work, all this stuff, even yoga. Like you have to bring awareness into the body, into the nervous system. And if you just talk about your problems, like therapy, you get really aware of why you have problems, but it doesn't make them better. You need to be able to do inner work and start to, figure out some of this stuff. So there's many different techniques that we use when we work on mindset, and everything from like journaling, so you can kind of, figure out where the roots of these issues are, but also like embodiment practices and things to like learn in your everyday life how to move through these situations. Because if you know how to overcome fear, you can overcome fear at the poker table. You can overcome anxiety. You can overcome performance issues. Like if you know how to overcome, pain of losing, if you can work on your issues around loss and attachment and, in life, then they're solved at the poker table. And if you're a very scarcity-minded, deep attachments, can't let things go kind of person, you're going to suffer a lot when you play poker. And like, become a person who's at peace and who's brave, and you'll be at peace and brave when you play poker. But if you don't try to become that, you just want to like turn it on for poker, you're going to struggle because it's not true for you. And you can't bullshit yourself, right?
Yeah, like what do you think? Like my first guess would be, if someone has issues like not being willing to take risk, maybe it is related to being a good person, or being liked, or being worried about their social like being judged by other players, by having
a lot of
and just continue.
Even very good players that I've worked with have had that issue. Like really, I won't mention names, but like some incredibly successful high stakes players have had that issue when they're afraid of, they know they want to play a hand a certain way, but maybe they have a relationship with the player that it's against, or like, you know, people talk and they were like, oh, I want to be able to play the way I want to play, but I see myself holding back because I know there'll be a comment about it in the chat, or like someone's going to say I suck. And, you know, ultimately, none of these people are going to be there at your funeral. And it might help to remember that. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't fucking matter. Sorry, can I swear on here? I don't know. But if you don't learn to live your life like unapologetically and work on caring too much what other people think and being a people pleaser, well then like the last place you want to be a people pleaser is at the freaking poker table, right? You're there to take someone's money, but you're worried about what they think about you. Like, you know, sometimes poker players who are successful, they're a little bit of a G, you know, they're a little bit of a gangster. Like they get in their opponent's head, they tilt them. It's mental warfare in a way. And you know, on and off the felt is different. I definitely wouldn't be a participant in like trying to tilt someone in life to then get an edge at poker. I think that's like that's kind of like gets sketchy, right? But at the poker table, like all's fair in love and war kind of thing. You know what I mean? You don't owe anybody anything. Like if you got the button and you can make the sizing, you can do it. You know.
Yeah,
I don't
like
get into the chat box. I think that's kind of toxic, but you know.
yeah. Sorry
All's
for
fair within bet sizing.
sticking really long with this this topic, but this is one topic which really I can relate to a lot. Looking back to my career, which is kind of on pause now, but I basically exited on the very top to start managing CheckDecide, and I'm looking forward to continue one day. I have a lot of time to think back, like what I could have done better in my poker career. And one thing which sticks to my mind is like many times I'm not a super genius or in any way, don't take it that way, but many times I had a good idea about a new line we should apply on a certain texture or a certain run out, but I was afraid to actually implement and try to experiment with that line or with that sizing, with that frequency before I saw it from someone else. And this often resulted in missing on an opportunity for on opportunities for months or for years until someone else, some big name took that line, or I saw that line or saw that sizing from someone I respected. And this is probably one of the main reasons which separated me from the real ballers, and this is why I just was a reasonably successful poker player. So this is one thing I had in mind. And the other one is, which is very worth mentioning, that I'm not sure if you are familiar with the phone economoneurons, which I often mention. Maybe I mentioned in one of the earlier streams. Phone economoneurons are special forms of special group of neurons in your brain, which is known for being activated whenever you have any thought about yourself. So if you start thinking like, am I good enough? Are the other players respecting me? Or will this line look ridiculous, or anything like that? Anything about yourself, then these VAN neurons, phonecomon neurons, are activated. And if they are activated, then the fear center of your brain, the amygdala, is activated as well. And this means that your focus is ruined. You will start acting like a lion running towards you or something like that, driven by your scares. And yeah, so one thing which changed. In case you are not familiar, I guess you are familiar with my story, that in 2010 I had a fantastic year, profiting over 1 million. And then a year later, I had some bad investments and I was basically broke. And I had to rebuild myself from that point. And for a long time, the earlier big scores just didn't repeat. Partly because of variance, which is normal, but partly because I made mistakes in the end games many times. And even if I didn't make mistakes, I was far less creative than earlier I was. And I was lucky to go to a psychologist who helped me recall my memories of the old days when I was not scared, when I played at my very maximum, and how my thinking changed by the after the big crash, after the big losses. And the main difference was the place of my focus. Back in the days, which we like, she basically semi hypnotized me, and I was able to recall my thinking at the big final table, which I won, and my thinking was fully about the other players, like what I'm going to do against that guy, how I'm going to go cause pain to that guy, what kind of sizing I'm going to use against that guy, what leaks I have already picked up on the other guy, etc. So my focus was continuously outside me. And after the big losses, my thoughts were like, is this my chance to get back to where I was, or something like that all the time? And this is probably combined with the things we learned about the neurons, the von Economo neurons. This probably explains like why I missed on many opportunities to make the same creative plays, the same unusual bet sizes, lines, etc. So yeah, this is basically my story, but I don't want to. I didn't want to interrupt you too much.
Okay. I mean, you touched on something super deep there, which is like when you become emotional, you don't think rationally. And if you can just remember that one sentence, like that's why tilt exists, right? And people become emotional when their beliefs are challenged, right? Their identity is challenged. This is why we have such a division in politics, especially in the US. It's like no one learns from the other side. No one learns anything, because the moment that their beliefs are challenged, they don't care what's right. They care who's right, which is totally backwards. So people who've like kind of done the work to move beyond the ego, they care what's right. They don't care who's right. Like we're looking at some hands here. I don't give a shit if you tell me I was wrong, and then I'm happy I got better. I hope I butchered like many hands, because that means I'm going to improve a lot. If you just tell me I played well, like I'm no better than I was before. But that's not the default state of most humans. The default state of most humans is they want to be right. You know, the moment a debate happens, they would prefer to win than lose. And you know, very, very smart people like being wrong because they like growing more than they don't need to affirm their ego. They're like just kind of okay inside. So that's why I say, you know, if you have trouble with this stuff, you got to do the inner work, because without it, like you just can't improve. You can't improve. Like I've worked with people that like they're always trying to defend why they did what they did, and like it's awful. You can't get better that way. Like, you know, you have to start to look for why you're wrong instead of why you're right, and like purposefully look at things that like make you question your beliefs, and learn to like feel that activation and relax it. And you know, like I've done this in relationships. A girlfriend comes and says I did something wrong. Old James would be like, no, I didn't, you know, and now new James is a little bit more like, I feel that desire to defend myself and, you know, explain why I'm not this terrible person. And I like let that go and try to look at the situation objectively. And from my experience, there's kind of two kinds of people that do really well in poker. People who've kind of done this work to move past, you know, this defensiveness and this ego and this stuff. And then people who are just sort of like, you get the feeling the way their mind works is just, I don't know, different in a way. Like they just, none of this stuff enters the equation. Like when they're playing poker, they just either naturally always think about what, you know, the ranges and the strategy, and they just naturally don't take it personal. So it's just never been an issue for them. Or maybe like you, they had that natural ability, but then something happened and it like broke it, but you repaired it. And that's why mindset can be really important. Like if you have a way of looking at the game and then it changes to be emotional, if you go through, you know, losing $1 million is, you know, pretty fucking traumatic, to be honest. So if that happens and you don't do anything about it, you know, we used to call this brain busto, you know, like you're playing, but you're brain busto. And if you don't, you know, you can repair the bankroll, but if you don't repair the mindset, you'll just go bust again. So super, super relevant and important topic to understand. You know, the default for humans, for most humans, is to respond when your beliefs are challenged or when your identity is in question, like there's a fucking tiger, right? But the only way to make good rational decisions is to de-escalate the emotion so you can get back in your rational mind. If you're emotional, you're not rational. Period.
Yeah. All right. Let's talk some strategy as well.
Let's play King 10.
Yeah, actually, you didn't play this King 10, so it's probably some focus issue on your part. So you just folded it.
Oh, yeah, that's bad.
Right. Maybe too many tables or whatever. Probably your default is to open
yeah, I timed out quite a lot during Scoop. I think I was like trying to play everything, and I probably made some, like, I had a lot of trouble with like Table Tamer not working correctly and like, you know, shit like this. But yeah, obviously not a fold.
Yep. All right. And the next one is again on the tight side. I'm not sure if it's like timing out or it's intentional, but remember this guy has around 30k chips in bounty on his head, and the other guy also has, so it's not the end of the world if you get called and you play a flip against him. So I would definitely just jam this. Was this intentional fold on your side or timing out or?
And to be honest, I don't remember, but I definitely could. I could see me folding this intentionally, based on the fact that, or based on my assumption that the guy who shoved is getting called. So I think his range here. I don't remember how loose the opener was opening. If the opener is opening like 25%, then the guy's jamming like, you know, I don't know, sevens plus and like potentially like king queen suited and stuff like this and ace jack off. But if the guy's range under the gun was say like 17% and maybe doesn't like it depends, you know, some people will play looser here because the big blind he covers, so he could have like a 25% range, he could have like a 22% range, he could have 17% range. But if the guy under the gun's in it, then the guy shoving, if he's aware of that, should be knowing he's getting called quite often, and then his range might be, I'll still be ahead of his range, but not by a landslide anymore. You know, like he may not be shoving sevens, so or that might be the worst pair he's shoving, and then he's obviously gonna have all the better ones and all the hands I flip with, which again is fine because it's dead money. But then the original opener as well, of course, we're not miles ahead of his range either. But I guess if you ran the numbers, I don't have a three-way bounty calculator. Maybe you have another Magic Excel spreadsheet, but I don't know if we gave under the gun like, you know, 15 or 17%, and we gave the other guy like 11%. Like, what's our range look like? It's probably still nines, maybe nines is the bottom. But you tell me.
Well,
this was my thought process, though. If I didn't time out, you know, maybe I just didn't know what to do and then ran out of time.
Yeah, like, yeah, this is very logical, but I'm fairly sure that with all this being said, even against relatively tight guys, this should be an all-in, because it's very hard to insert the effect of the bounty properly into your normal logical breakdown. So I think if we add 30,000 chips to this guy, and also given that two of the guys behind us, we should be scared of only have 20 big blind, that also helps us in getting the chips in. So I think this is still a very clear jam. But I will try to do some calcs on this one, and so I'm
what do you think our range is supposed to be here? Like sevens, ace jack suited, ace queen, or like you going like wider than that?
No, I think nines or eights are probably the bottom. This is my estimation, but I may be too tight as well. But they are something like eights and ace jack suited, probably. That this would be my take. Yeah. But yeah, we'll see.
Ace jack suited feels a bit loose because like he's always jamming ace queen, but he may not even jam like ace 10 here.
Yeah, but we don't really give too much fuck about his re-raising range, because we have a bunch of money already, dead money as well. But
we do care about getting it in 70-30 against under the gun, right? Like if under the gun's not opening ace 10.
Yeah, against the under the gun player, yeah. But the under the gun player in practice may also fold ace queen. I'm not sure, like probably not. but something around that would be my take. But it is very hard to solve this spot with basic logic, and we definitely have to take a calculator. And I'm going to post the results and tag you in our Discord channel. So yep,
Cool.
in a few days, probably today, if I can somehow find a way to calculate, probably with HRC simply. Yep. All right. Yeah. I'm not sure if it matters, but yeah, a little bit of info about the ranges. Both are very standard, so
Yeah.
I'm not sure we can
I mean, it
take.
could have been an amazing result, right? Maybe we maybe sevens over calls. You know, I don't know. I
Yeah.
feel like I've seen players like four bet jam king queen suited there, and I obviously like it's not a head, but with the bounties, it could be okay. I don't know. Like
Yeah.
I'm very curious to see these results. I think I'm going to learn a lot from this hand.
Yeah. I think King Queen suited actually is a fine rejam here, given the circumstances. But yeah,
When you say fine, I assume like you mean not terrible, but when like if you said it's good, I mean it's like you're making a mistake if you don't do it. I'm kind of curious which it is, you know?
yeah, like obviously all these spots are different, but so we can all at this point we can only go by our feelings and our experience and what we have seen from other guys who we respect. So it actually it matter. For example, it matters a lot whether these guys have the same stack as we do. So we risk 45% against their occasional ace queens and ace kings and big hands.
Yeah.
That's actually a very relevant factor when we have three open ranges behind us. How much we actually risk against them. Yeah, but I think like many times we can push this guy out of the pot with some medium pocket pairs, or even we just don't mind if they call with nines or tens. What I experienced is that king queen suited performs surprisingly well in most of the pre-flop circumstances, especially in bounty tournaments. So that's why I would guess that it's probably a good rejam actually. But yeah, we will see. I will post the results to the Discord channel.
Well, you click over to the next hand. I'm just going to run to the bathroom. And I don't know if we're going to be live for 3 hours here. I'm not going to hold it the whole time. So give me a moment.
All right. Okay, let's see who we have here. So we have Adrian, we have Hattie, we have Fedor polls, we have problems, 99 problems. Yeah, 99 problems saying yes, James from Tiltbook a few years ago, and Luigi, we have chatted a few times about some hands in our Discord channel, I guess. Yeah. All right. Yeah, where can I chat? Where can I? Oh, yeah, I guess I have to open Twitch and then I can chat. I'm fairly new to this streaming world, so and then I can chat. I'm fairly new to this. And then I can chat. I'm fairly new to this. And then I can chat. So,
Alrighty.
yeah, I'm just trying to.
Alrighty.
Yeah, I'm just trying to.
Alrighty.
Yeah, I'm just trying to. Just trying to post the link of the Discord channel. Just trying to post the link of the Discord.
Sure.
Yeah, I have an echo. Yeah. All right.
Adjusting my air conditioning. All right, let's do this.
Yep. Let's see the next hand. It's Jack of suit, and there you made a min raise from the small blind against a particularly strong opponent. I think he's a very decent player. is this your standard, or was this your standard at the time, or just timing out and clicking buttons, or?
It could have been timing on it, to be honest, but I do think that this is my weakest position in general in tournament poker is the small blind. Like, I think BBZ has a course on like playing small blind and like small blind versus button, small blind versus like big blind is like for sure my weakest. But I do remember that I had like I know it's not like the solver proof strategy, but I used to have a strategy that involved opening small blind versus blind, and I think it does put people in like a semi-difficult position with like hands that they probably shouldn't fold for a tiny raise, but they like don't really want to call a raise with, like 10-5 off and stuff like that. But I think I might have been timing out in the sizing. Like my standard here would actually be to like limp or go bigger, and like I'd be like limping ace jack suited here, but I might be going like probably bigger with ace jack off. Or limping. And I think like the min raise is surprising, but like I wouldn't be shocked to see like I guess 3.5x is like the standard is what everybody's doing these days. But covering in a bounty tournament, I think I was trying to like kind of look like I was opening really wide and potentially folding a lot and hoping he went jam. I don't know.
All right.
I don't think limping is as good. Wait, just one more thing. I don't think limping is as good in this situation as it would be in a regular tournament. Because in a regular tournament, people are more likely to jam, but in a bounty tournament, when someone knows that you cover them, I think they're like less likely to re-raise pre-flop. So that's why I wanted to put more money in, and that's probably why I should be opening bigger, right? Like 3x, 3.5x.
Yeah, like
And just to answer a quick question in the chat, do I consider myself more of a poker pro or a mindset coach? Definitely a mindset coach. Like my vision for my life is like coaching people across many industries, public speaking, this kind of thing. I've been coaching extensively for 4 or 5 years. I don't study a ton. I play weekends and series, but I mean, you can judge for yourself how good or not my game is. But I was a pro for 10 years. I have made like quite a lot of money playing poker. But I'm not grinding PO 8 hours a day, no chance.
All right. Back to the small blind play. Like this is an important topic enough to actually dedicate a few minutes to cover the basics on how to play a small blind. First in vacuum or in normal circumstances, and then we will discuss a little bit how to adjust to bounty tournaments. So let's switch to the other view, and then I can open some charts. So we are just going to go through the basics of different stack sizes, like 60 big blind, 30 big blind, and 20 big blinds, basically, how to approach. So with deep stacks, the deepest stack chart I have is 60 big blind. And if you take a look at what Monker suggests, if you're not familiar with for starters, if you're not familiar with the Monker ranges, these are basically basically some software developers created some poker bots who play close to perfect poker, and they put a bunch of these robots to a table, and they told them to try every possible strategy and adjust to each other until they get to a so-called equilibrium play or GTO, game theory optimum play. And this means that they cannot make adjustments to increase their profit. So this is these charts are the results of these experiments. So I'm going to also open the what the big blind should.
So yellow is limp and orange is raise, right?
Yeah, yellow is limp, and orange or brown, whatever it is a raise. And the raise size, in this case, it's given in the size of the pot, so it's not super clear, but 3.5x is generally the standard. With deep stacks, or maybe 4x is good as well. And at first it looks a little bit chaotic, but I'm try to cover the basics. So one of the surprising elements is that the small blind is supposed to limp many of the big pocket pairs. As you can see, ace is almost always limp, kings 50-50, queens 50-50, etc. The reason behind this is that if you are up against some like a really sticky, aggressive player, let's say, you know Probeers, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So if you talk about an aggressive, sticky, post-flop well-playing opponent which we would not like to build a pot out of position against, then he would be one of my five top picks. Or who would be your five top picks for guys not to build pot out of position against?
I feel like they're all Hungarian, like Omaha for rolls, like Pro Beers, Beers 320, like all these guys. Like what's the other one? Like Wild Ace Hun, like I think he's loose too. I'm not sure. I don't actually know much about his game, but I mean, I feel like it changes over time. I mean, I think most players now are playing pretty correct, but I definitely have a color for like gangster. You know, like I would say, you know, people who aren't afraid to float. I mean, who was it? God, somebody at a final table to 5K like check like called a 3-bet on the flop with air and then check called the turn with air to lead all in on a flush completing river with absolutely nothing and like got the guy to fold. Definitely friggin' that guy. I don't remember who it was, but it was so much heart. It was amazing.
Yeah, like yeah. So if you're up against not necessarily a gangster, but someone who plays at least a steady game and will make you suffer post flop with relatively big stacks compared to the size of the pot. So even if you raise 3.5x, the pot is going to be something like nine big blind or 8 big blind, and you will still have a big stack like 60, 80, 100 big blinds behind you. Then you will like it will be not ideal for aces or kings or queens. Obviously you are going to make a profit, but your opponent will have a relatively easy time to evaluate all the information from position and make decent plays on the turns, on the rivers. And many times the turns and rivers will give him enough strong hands, two pairs which you don't have, etc. So
Yeah.
this is like simply raising is not not only raising is not ideal for these hands. So that's why Monkers suggests that first you should mainly limp these big hands along with ace king and ace queen, and then your opponent, obviously, as he only sees a limp from the small blind, will apply a strategy something like this. So you can see that the big blind has all the reason to raise all the suited ace x hands, the suited king x hands, most of the suited queen x hands, suited connectors, pocket pairs. And what you can also see is that it raises a lot of the absolute garbage hands.
Yeah.
6 deuce of suit, 7 deuce of suit. And the reason behind this is that you limp hands like jack deuce of suit, queen tray of suit, jack 4 of suit, these kind of hands which cannot stand a raise. So if the big blind can make a raise with 7 tray of suit and fold out your jack tray of suit, that's a huge win for him. So if the big blind applies a similarly aggressive strategy from the big blind, what we can see here, then limp raising with your strongest hand is a very necessary strategy you should have. Like when you limp raise, let's say you limp, he raises to 3.5 or 4x, and you make a limp raise to like 15 big blinds, and you are 100 big blind deep and 100 big blinds deep, and he makes the call, then the pot is going to be somewhere around 30, 32 big blinds, and all of a sudden you find yourself with the opportunity to just bet half pot on the flop and jam with one pot size bet on the turn,
Right.
or something like that. And this reduces his positional advantage a lot. So even if he is one of the top gangsters, they they will just suffer because first of all they saw a limp, so they raised something like king 10 suited or queen 10 suited with all the reasons to make that raise, and then they find they see a limp raise, so they have a quite bad choice between folding a relatively strong hand in position or calling and going broke against some of the strongest hands. So therefore, they they really suffer. And on the flop, if they happen to flop top pair or strong draw, they don't have much else to do, just going with it. And this is what we would like to achieve. And if you experience that your opponent folds too much for your limp raises, then some hands like 7-5 suited, 6-4 suited, the smallest suited connectors and suited gappers, you can try implementing some limp raises against some more solid guys who rather overfold versus the limp raises than being sticky.
Can I ask a quick clarifying question?
Sure.
So at 100 big blinds, you said, you limp, he goes 4, you're going to like 15, which is 3.5x out of position for the 3-bet. If you're 60 big blinds deep, would your sizing be smaller? Like, because maybe you don't need to go 3.5x to set up an SPR where you can half pot flop and shove turn. Like maybe you can go, 3x instead of 3.5, for instance.
Yeah, like I'm not saying it's a very clear rule to limp raise with 100 big blinds. With 100 big blinds, you may actually want to go slightly higher, like 16 big blinds limp raise, and with 60 big blinds, you can lower that to 14 big blinds, 13 big blinds. Actually, I'm a big fan of making some adjustments, like what I know about that guy, even just a basic statistic, like folding the big blind, how the frequency they fold the big blind versus a normal steal. That's a very good marker of his whole profile. Like, is this a guy who likes to get into questionable spots with wide ranges? This is what it correlates with. And if I see someone who has high 4-3 bet, high 4 big blind versus steal, then I assume that this guy will fold too much, and therefore I raise slightly slower sizes. So I make it more questionable for him, unless I have 7-5 suited. So then I make a bigger size, and that's probably fine.
At what stack size would you start to have any limp jams?
Mm-hmm.
Would you have any at 60 or 40?
We will get there.
Any frequency?
Yeah, we will go through all the major stack size categories. But first, I have to.
Just one more question.
Yep.
Is there a chart that shows you, like, versus the raise, like what hands you're 3-betting, what hands you're calling, what hands you're folding? Because that seems pretty helpful too.
Versus a normal raise?
Like this chart shows, what the small blind is limping, folding, or raising pre-flop.
Mm-hmm.
Then we have the range that the big blind is, raising versus a limp. Do we have the range of hands that like fold versus the raise, 3-bet versus the raise, potentially 3-bet all in versus the raise, or just hood flat as we used to call it?
You mean versus the limp raise?
Yeah. When you limp and the big blind raises, is there a chart for the small blind's response?
I don't have that, but I assume there is. But I don't really have those.
For me, it seems a little bit hard to feel confident in your strategy of limping, like when you don't know how many hands you're going to 3-bet and what sizes and like what frequency against the response. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, probably there are charts for that. As in these cases, you only have one player you should play against. You normally have some kind of small information to help you decide with marginal hands whether to limp call, limp fold, or doing something tricky and limp raising. I think.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine.
yeah, and then whatever. I don't want to dig too deep because it's not something I am super familiar with it because as I said, normally I just take a look at the basic stats of that guy, or my reads on the population is that they don't isolate wide enough. Many of the guys just don't do these kind of isolation raises, which they should. So therefore, I can comfortably limp fold some of the marginal hands. This is my approach, but obviously this is something which is worth working on because this is a very frequent spot. So
Yeah.
if I ever restart my career again, then I will start with this probably. Anyway,
That's interesting. My read is that like $100 ABI that or at least playing on GG and stars that everybody's ISOing you with Queen 6 offsuit when you limp in the small blind. Like I'm playing I don't really want to give too much away in my strategy, but I mean I feel like I'm getting ISOed a lot by one high card, one low card type hands, and like I feel like people love to 3.5 exit. So I mean I've been known to limp jam kind of wide. So
yeah, like
anyway.
I basically paused my career uh, 2 years ago. Since that, I only do some coaching and review a lot of tournaments in CheckDecide. In those tournaments, I don't see those type of isolations too much, but I can imagine that in some sites or in some stakes, yeah, the population changed and they started to apply these kind of aggressive isolations.
I mean, in all honesty, I might have a lot of biases. It's quite hard to play poker and observe the population. Like, and I think some people have a better mind for it than others. But if you're reviewing a lot of other people's hand histories and seeing all the whole cards revealed, I'm sure your opinion is going to be more, what's the word? More accurate than mine. Mine's much more easily going to be colored because I'm a human being and I'm playing just my own results. And just the showdowns I see. Whereas you're more like a statistician. So I would trust your reads over mine.
Yeah, like really,
Population for
this is
sure.
this is one of the big benefits of, especially if you normally grind on mid stakes and low stakes. One of the most important characteristics of grinding mid stakes is that the player's pool is just too big to have individual reads. So almost everyone just goes with the population tendencies, and therefore, if you are familiar with the population tendencies, or you can actually find some spots where you can go against the population tendencies. For example, one of the strongest population leagues is that they tend to size up mostly with their strong hands, and they don't find the big size bluff c bets on some textures, like on 9 deuce 5 they should use a lot of big size bluff c bets, and they don't do that. They only size up with like tens and queens and kings and all those kind of hands. So therefore, if you can go against that and start applying a lot of bluff c bets on these textures, then that's gold mine actually. So yeah, paying attention to the population tendencies is super important, and if you're a coach, then you can collect a lot more information about that. But I can imagine that in some cases it is different. We have some notes from Adrian. Um, he's saying that people don't check back enough ace-x hands and low pocket pairs. Yeah, we will talk about that later with the more shallow stack sizes with ace-x hands. Yeah, we can see that some offsuit ace-x hands, they should check behind with these stack sizes, because offsuit ace-x hands cannot really call a limp raise, and you can see that some offsuit broadways are also checked. So against a limp, queen 10 offsuit or queen jack offsuit should be checked if you are up against a player who has limp raise ranges. Many of the guys just don't. Even in mistakes, they don't do enough limping with their strong hands. So then you can start raising this. And so just to cover this chart, the other important group is the like the second category, strong suited hands, like Queen 9 suited, King Jack suited. These type of hands are not strong enough to limp raise, but they have very good playability. They are suited. They can pick up a flush draw on the turn. They are connected, so they can pick up a gut shot on the turn to barrel and not to give that path to Probeers or Oma for Rose or whoever you're up against. So therefore, these kind of hands play good enough to actually build a path out of position, even with deep stacks. So these are going to be our main raising hands. And as you can see, we barely have any offsuit hand raised here. So ace jack offsuit, yeah, sometimes, but still almost 50-50 limp or raise. And king queen offsuit, it has good enough playability, but still suffers versus 3-bet out of position. So one of the main reasons why you don't want to raise this is that they really don't play good against 3-bets, and also
Can I devil's advocate a little bit?
yeah, sure.
So this is for, you know, standard tournament or cash, right? But we're playing a bounty tournament, which means I think since he knows I cover him and I want to actively be all in my chips against his chips more often than usual, I think he's going to be more hesitant to ISO my limps, which means I think I want to limp like less with hands that are ahead of his range. So I would imagine there'd be more like almost like, maybe I'm wrong and tell me, you know, but like my thought process would be like, I want to put money in the pot myself because I think he's less likely to do it because I cover him. And it means like I'm more likely to want to play a big pot against him. So I don't think he's going to find like as many ISOs I can 3-bet or just ISOs in general. I think he'll play more passively versus me because I cover him.
Yeah, like I wanted to cover this later, but yeah, whatever. Let's just talk a little bit about this. So the basic logic is as you described, that if you have the biggest stack, you can't really expect him to raise too much. So therefore, you have to be quite straightforward with your own strong hands, and also he will not run huge bluffs, full stack bluffs against you post flop, so you don't mind building hands with some medium offsuit hands out of position. So this is the basic logic. But if you are up against a regular who knows that you are a regular, then I have a feeling that this basically switches to the other side, that actually regulars don't really or barely limp with bigger stack in bounty tournament from the small blind, because they don't expect the other guy to raise too much with smaller stack. And therefore, if you are the smaller stack in a bounty tournament and the small blind just limped and it is a regular, then you probably have very profitable ISO situations or isolation opportunities, because the other guy will probably not have limp raise hands put in the limp. Do you get what I mean? Like this kind of
it's almost like a game of chicken. Like if the guy's going to put the money himself because he doesn't think he will, then when he does limp, he's super polarized, or maybe even only weak, right? But it depends on the regular, because some people are just they're not going to be so face up, right? But yeah, some people for sure will. Some people may literally raise every hand they want to play for chips and limp every hand they don't want to fold, and like, you know, against them you just go all in blind.
Yeah. Obviously, these kind of situations are like allow a lot of adjustment to each other. But I think for the very first limp, we do probably better by assuming that he will not have too many limp jumps, not too many strong hands. So I would be actually quite brave to raise the limp of a regular if I have the smaller stack. But this is just a little bit off and then maybe too deep
What do you
in
think?
leveling?
I mean, you can go level further. Like, okay, I'm gonna raise his limp, 4x when I want him to fold, and 3.5x when I want him to call because I have like aces, But then you're like super face up, and if someone knows that, you're just massively exploitable. But like against random, people in the population, yeah, they probably fold more often to the bigger size and like call with dominated hands more often to a smaller size. But
Yeah.
then, like, if they think like that and that's what you're doing, then you should flip it, and then you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Let them limp three bet your
I,
five big blind raise.
yeah, but I think one of the biggest strength of real bowlers is that they are not afraid to make these kind of exploitative adjustments for the very first spot, and then once it happened and once they have a reason to believe that the other guy started adjusting, then they readjust, and they this way they keep themselves ahead for a few rounds, and then if they think that okay, it's hard to follow what is the next step in leveling, then they switch to some kind of GTO or a more balanced strategy.
It's funny we're talking about this because I honestly used to jam any two suited on the first limp blind versus blind for like 25 or less. I just figure like, at that stack size, people are raise calling their strong hands. And if I had, if I'm going to be suited anyway, worst case scenario, I'd all in instantly too. Like, like 9-2 suited, just instant all in against the limp and they always fold. I don't do it anymore because I think people adjusted and started limping strong hands, started getting, trapped by King 10 and being like, oh shit,
Yeah,
it
no,
wasn't the trap I expected. So
I would be very careful doing those type of like extreme adjustment and or exploitative plays in normal tournaments, and but I think putting in a 3.5x raise in a bounty tournament just to prove or just to get experience, like whether this concept works or not, I think it's worth it. So it's not like risking your
yeah.
whole stack. It's just yeah, testing my hypothesis. And so this is what you should do with deep stacks out of position, limping many of your strongest hands, raising mostly your suited connected hands, and not raising too many offsuit hands, unless your opponent is super passive, which when you can obviously adjust and start implementing a more straightforward strategy. So this is basically how you should play the deepest stacks from the small blind. With 30 big blind, the picture is very different. So as you can see, there is no more limping from the small blind. It doesn't make sense to limp raise your aces 30 big blinds effective from the small blind,
Well,
because
there's still a lot of limping, just no more limp trapping, right?
they do limp trapping, like ace queen off, ace jack off.
With ace king, yeah.
Yeah, and some these are probably most of the times these are trap limps, and also the pocket fours, pocket five, pocket sixes, pocket sevens, pocket eights are trap limps for sure. But not with the strongest hands. The strongest hands are just raised very straightforwardly, and with this stack depth, we don't mind raising more offsuit hands as well, because first of all, the other guy will be more conservative with the isolations, because he should be scared of you limp raising from the small blind, and also you don't mind building a pot out of position because the stack to pot ratio is more shallow. And also what else, there was one more reason. And also the big blind has to be more careful with three betting you, because with 30 big blinds you can find a lot more like potential 4-bet bluffs, even if he goes over the line. So this is what you see, a very straightforward strategy, still big sizing, so 5 small blind plus the biggest bet so far, which is 1 big blind, so this adds up to 3.5x, and this sizing allows you to make some actual steals with some suited trashy hands, disconnected suited trashy hands, some of the lowest connected suited trashes, and some like I'm not saying these are trash,
Some
but
hands that give you board coverage on like boards that your raising range wouldn't otherwise hit.
yeah, and also
Right.
these kind of hands are somewhat easy to play because most of the time they don't flop anything, and if they flop, they often flop a top pair, not too vulnerable top pair, which you can play deceptively and then go with that. So it is clear how different this strategy is than the strategy we took a look at with the deepest stacks. And 25 big blinds, you basically see the same. This is the last bet size, the last stack size where you have non-all-in raises. You already see some open jamming with some medium offsuit aces and with your lowest pocket pairs. Yeah, these do fine. You don't really want to build pots with these, and your opponent will not isolate you most of the time enough to go for a limp raise like you do with the medium pocket pairs. And once again, this is against a competent player. I actually don't have that versus limp chart for 25 big blinds, but with 20 big blinds we arrive to another like stage where we don't want to raise non-all-in any longer against a good player, because our options are like one, to raise very small, and then we don't really cause pain for that guy because he can call a lot in position and realize equity quite easily. Or the other way to go is to raise big, and then with 20 big blinds you raise to 3 or 3.5x. Then his risk reward ratio for rejamming on you is going to be very favorable for him. So probably these are the most important reasons why you don't want to apply non-all-in open raises from the small blind. Again, if you are up against a passive guy who will not rejam enough against you, or you are the big stack in the final table, or on the final table, or something similar, then you are very free to adjust and deter from this strategy. But if you are up against someone who you don't have any reads on, then you should apply something like this. This group of hands might be surprising because these are very nicely connected hands with good playability. You may feel uncomfortable jamming these, but these actually can fold out a lot of better hands, like Queen 10 off,
Queen 8, Queen 9.
yeah, and they perform relatively well against the calling ranges because they are rarely dominated. So this is the reason behind. One thing to mention is that you should not really build pot out of position or limp with offsuit aces. You should just jam these, which might be a bit too simplistic for some of the guys, but if you open jam ace queen offsuit, then that helps these marginal jams as well, and your opponent will have a harder time defending against these kind of jams. So that's the reason.
I found this super helpful. I mean, like now that you explain it, it makes perfect sense. But yeah, just like I wouldn't have thought of this on my own. I guess that's why we have robots for it. Thank you, AI.
I'm happy to help. Yeah. So going back to the bounty bounty version. Let's switch back to the other view. There you go.
Here we go. Fishy open size. From like an old school regular. Go Leafs go. I don't have any specific reason. He's a good player. That's all. But fishy regular, I would say about myself.
No, yeah. I think he's quite good, or definitely he used to be good. I do not really follow his career, but he's definitely successful. And with the bounty in play, you want to do a lot more raising, even with the Leveling war, we mentioned you may want to go into that, but mostly with suited hands. You mainly trap with suited hands, because if he doesn't raise, then you need playability, because you are going to be out of position with relatively deep stacks. So you mainly limp your suited hands, and you rather raise with this stack depth. You rather raise your offsuit hands, I would say, probably.
I mean, are you four betting this? Because I would almost feel comfortable like limp three bet folding this. Although that seems like kind of exploitable, but I don't expect him to four bet wide. But like if I limp four bet, I don't like the range. Or if I raise four bet, I don't like the range I'm getting it in against very much. If I raising it three bet with his hand, I think it's pretty ugly actually. I don't know. I mean, I guess that's the strategy I went for, is raise, and I assume I wasn't going to fold. I'm pretty sure I was going to four bet all in and hope he has ace 10. But yeah.
I don't think.
If I limp three bet, I like the SPR if he flats, and I like the range he flats me with.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I know we just did all that work, so we're limp three bet is not the strategy. But
I get what you mean, that probably his raising range will be quite polar with this stack depth, and then against the value part of that range, you probably don't do good enough. But with the 30k bounty in play and with the dead money in, you probably don't really mind. Unless you have a perfect read on the guy, like how he's going to construct his ranges and how you are going to play, how he's going to play. Unless you have this, you probably can simplify and just jam it and say that probably he will fold enough, and I have good enough equity, and I have the bounty to win. So I'm going with it. If you don't have any better read, then you probably should go with this, because limp raise folding or something like that can lead to like massive mistakes, like you putting in a lot of money and he jamming with sevens or eights, and you fold. That's quite a disaster. Yeah, but I get what you mean. I just think that with this tag, he will not 3-bet you light too much. Even with all the leveling, I think most of the guys will just stay conservative, and being aware that you don't need much of a hand to jam over this. So I think raising relatively big is fine. You can your value range is quite wide. I think somewhere around this hand, like the stack of range, and then you can implement a lot of steals as well. So I think just raising big is fine. And on this texture, on this texture, I think this is a texture which might be surprising for a lot of players. But if we take a look at this, this is basically like no flop arrived. Like you are still pre-flop basically, because the 3/6s probably didn't change any of the ranges, and.
We have equity advantage. He has nut advantage, right? Like he's gonna have much more sixes because he's gonna flat like 100% of them, and we're not opening like a lot of hands with a 6 in it for a min raise.
Well,
so he's gonna have nut advantage, but we're still ahead equity wise.
Let's make something clear, because maybe you are not, but I see a lot of players being confused with this nut advantage thing, because. When we talk about nut advantage, we don't necessarily talk about the exact nuts. We talk about all the hands which we are willing to stack off. So if you have aces here, it sucks to run into sixes, or you may even have some bad feeling when you get all the money in, but you still can very comfortably get it in. Or even if you, especially if it just calls, you are very...
I don't know. I mean, if you bet small and he min raises you, bets and shoves the river, there's definitely some players that literally only have a 6, Maybe not a regular who'd be balanced, but I mean, it's hard to find the bluffs to, because by the time I get to the river, it's almost like PLO. It's like, the guy's got quads because it looks like I have an overpair and I'm not going to fold it, so he doesn't fire the third barrel,
Yeah, but that's just we get into leveling war with some super exploitative thoughts. But if we talk about like general theory, like how we should think about nut advantage, then like what governs all the solvers is that like the guy who has the most hands to stack off with has the opportunity or right to open the betting ground and bet more than the other guy. Because obviously, if the other guy who doesn't really have any hands to stack off with starts betting, then the first guy has an easy way to bottle that and just should raise and bet and put pressure on the other guy, because he will get a lot of faults. So the nut advantage generally means that you have more hands to stack off with on the given board than your opponent. And if we take a look at any of the solvers, then basically any pocket pair you have here is good enough, probably with the stack depth and with the bounty in play to stack off with. So therefore you have the nut advantage. He has something like super nut advantage or absolute nut advantage, but we don't give a fuck about that really. Like at this point, he just called a min raise in position with super good odds, and he has million non-six hands and a few six hands, so 6x hands, so that's fine.
You should bet small, yeah.
That would be your first.
Like 1/3.
That would be your first thought, to bet small. But if you are up against a sticky enough player who calls with a lot of king highs, maybe queen highs as well, then you may, if we put this into a solver, then the solver often says that we have the nut advantage, we have some super strong hands, but we also have a lot of garbage hands, not just ace jack, but some other garbage or speculative hands. We raised, I don't know, 10-9 suited or 8-9 suited, whatever. I don't know how your min raising range looks from the small blind, but I can assume there are some speculative hands as well. And with 9-8 suited, you don't mind if you can fold out something like a jack high or queen high or something like that. And therefore, what the solvers say that we should leverage the fact that we have strong hands, and with the strong hands, we should use an illogically big sizing just to support all the trash hands which we also want to bet here. And the overall strategy, which is constructed around a big size bet on these textures, is going to be... Excuse me?
Like if we bet like 2/3, you know what I mean, or like 75% pot, what does big blind do? Like I guess he could like min raise or fold.
He cannot do much. Like he just has like if let's say if you make one big blind bet here, he probably has an easy time defending, like calling ace highs, calling queen highs, some queen 10 as well, something like that, and you don't really cause any trouble to him. Maybe on the later streets he can, but if he catches a queen on the turn, you will never ever make his life really hell. Like sometimes he pays your aces or kings off, but most of the time he just catches a bluff successfully. So that's why probably small bet is not perfect for this kind of super dry textures where you have the nut advantage, but you also have a bunch of trashy or medium hands which you cannot really continue on many turns because you will not pick up flush draws or anything. If you pick up, you probably will not feel comfortable with. So this is one of the surprising things I found about solvers, that on these super dry textures, which basically which are basically like no flop arrived, nothing changed in the ranges compared to pre-flop. The solvers use huge sizing to leverage the fact that the preflop raiser has some nutty hands. So with many hands you want to bet big, but with this one you probably like we can probably use two sizing and small sizing with these kind of hands, which can get a lot of calls from weaker aces, some king x hands, etc. That's fine. And you want to use big sizes with something like 9-8 suited, 10-9 suited, and with some of your vulnerable middling pocket pairs, etc. So that would be my approach to this. The big maybe the big the small size is probably better, or medium size. Yeah, I probably was too quick with the with reviewing this and didn't think this through well enough. The turn is a safe one. I think he has enough floats and weaker hands to justify another bet here. He cannot really raise, so I would go with a small bet just to make his life really miserable with this one, because then he either has to fold some king x or call with some king x. Whatever. The half pot sizing is fine as well, and the river is blank. We don't have much of a reason to bet, and he checks behind, and we won basically the maximum, which is nice. Yep.
Could have jammed pre. One more.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was an interesting hand though. Thank you for that.
All right. Yeah, this is once again like not bad. I'm not saying that, but I just wanted to raise awareness that you probably cannot see bet all your ace king here, because then
because he has a lot of king queen, queen jack, like
yeah, and also like just pocket pairs. He has a bunch probably. Out of position he will have a hard time like floating you with something like king jack of spades. So I like the big sizing, because what you bet here, you will not range c bet here at all, but you bet with is going to be very polar. So I like the big sizing and
bigger,
would put pressure on him. So I overall I like the c bet. I wanted to mention that I don't necessarily want to see bet. Excuse me?
We should be betting like polar or bigger, right, on the flop.
No, I think this sizing is fine. I would just check behind some hands like probably ace king with a backdoor flush draw. That's better to check behind, because like when you have something like ace king with a backdoor flush draw, if you are super deep, you rather want to bet those, because if you are super deep, those are fine hands to bet and call a check raise with and float your opponent. While if you are with these stack depth like 40 big blind, where you cannot really call a check raise with ace king of diamond or ace king of spades, because you are not deep enough, then you rather want to check those behind and realize equity more with those, and bet these ace kings. I can still imagine that ace kings are like 50% bet and 50% check, but no big deal. Most of the guys will not punish you for over c betting in this spot, especially if you do that with the big sizing.
Yeah.
And once again, a missed open raise. You are the biggest stack on the table. You should not be shy raising this. I think it's just timeout, or
yeah. I might have looked at this, like I'm not calling anyone's rejam, but I mean I still agree with you that it's like 100% of suited aces, especially ace 7, should be open here to the big blind who we cover. This was one of the first tournaments I played in the Scoop, so I hadn't played poker in a really long time. And then like I put some money on PokerStars for the Scoop to play a few events, won a satellite to this tournament, and then like 120K. I was like, all right, let's go.
So you were classic scam money?
Winning. I actually ended up winning the Scoop leaderboard week 2, which is pretty funny, because I hadn't played poker since the Scoop the year before. Yeah, I mean I don't want to like be shy about saying I might have made a mistake. You know, I probably need to work my opening ranges. You know, I'm not 100% sure. Like I definitely would open this, some percentage of the time, but this may be like a criminal fold that I like occasionally
No,
like
no,
try to get
no,
away
no,
with,
no.
which is
I
not a
mean,
good strategy.
if all the guys are deep, the button is a strong player, and you are in a normal tournament, that's a very fine fold. But if you are in a bounty tournament where the smaller stacks will barely ever 3-bet you without a hand, or their bluff frequency for 3-betting will go significantly down, and you have the additional advantage that if you flop a nut flush draw, you will have a very super profitable check jams or raise jams or whatever with the bounty in play. All these details added up. I think this is a very, very standard open in this spot.
Yeah, I agree.
Hattie is interested. You going to carry on playing this year, or is it just big series you want to play from now on, and you can concentrate on the mindset side of things?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, even being a mindset coach, you're never immune to like everything's affecting in your own life. And obviously winning 120K and then winning the scoop leaderboard for the 10K and like having a bunch of deep runs like did incentivize me to play more poker, even though it's not in alignment with my absolute life goals, right? Like, I mean, the reason I stopped playing poker was I kind of felt like it's in a way a waste of time because it's like trading time for money. And my goal is to like leverage my time to help people with the knowledge that I have that can be really beneficial, because ultimately like my own journey, the mindset stuff that I went through changed everything. I was making 20K a month and I was miserable. I had like over $500,000 in Bitcoin, and like I wasn't super happy. And like, a lot of things happened in my life that made me see that success is great if you've already done your inner work, but if you haven't, it's almost like dangerous. So learning mindset and learning that the way I saw the world wasn't the way that it was, and that I could like look at the same life with a different set of eyes and a different set of feelings and have a completely different experience of the same reality, and it be much more enjoyable. That changed everything for me, and that just seems like a much more important, worthwhile, rewarding thing to focus on. So like I don't have any illusions that I can keep up with the best poker players in the world when I have this whole other thing I'm trying to do that they don't have or that they're not focused on. I have a lot of respect for guys like Ben CB and guys who manage to have businesses outside of poker while remaining competitive. I think they love the game, and I really enjoy people. So I enjoy learning this way, and I think that's why I like CheckDecide. And I'm really enjoying this review because I'm getting a lot better. I'm exposing my weaknesses. I'm learning from it. I'm being vulnerable, but I'm also having a conversation with you guys, having a conversation with Luigi. The moments that made me consider whether or not I wanted to be a poker player are really like I don't enjoy sitting behind my computer by myself and running numbers. Like I've sat, when I was in a downswing and like, grinding HRC, like to try to improve my leaks for, 6 hours at a time, 8 hours at a time, really trying to work on my game. And like, no point was that like something I love. And there are people that love that. There are people who love numbers. They love spreadsheets. They love being behind that. And they just love poker. And those people are going to have an easier time becoming really good than I would, because if I wasn't doing this with another person, I wouldn't enjoy it nearly so much, So yeah, I don't know. Like, I mean, obviously if I was like pretty deep in the 109 blowout. If I'd won 450K, like probably I'm going to play more tournaments, and that may sound like a recreational player mindset, but at the end of the day, my poker bankroll is sort of separate for me. If I had a big score, I'd be more looking to like cash out money from it and invest than I would to like just jump up in stakes. I have no desire to play like 2K buy-in plus unless it's like a World Series of Poker event that's like super soft. But I think $100 ABI for me, like on Sundays, is high variance, but it's still soft, and I honestly have a really good time playing. So I'll probably continue to play events that I think are like highest reward for the least kind of effort. But I will really be selective and not trying to compete with the people who this is their whole life, because it's not my life. It's like it's a hobby.
Yeah. Like one thing I wanted to mention is that probably the main reason why I made those ridiculously bad investments in 2010 and lost my fresh earn 1 million was that I didn't really have goals. after. Earlier, my main goal was to earn enough money to maybe buy a flat and buy a better car or whatever. Like this was my my set of goals, which I grinded every day for. And suddenly I got there. Actually, I got way beyond that. And I remember I was walking in the park and I felt miserable, pointless. I don't hit me for this because I know this can sound like really annoying for someone who never ever had the chance to own $1 million. And actually, for years I wanted to punch my past self for thinking like that. But still, the fact is that I was not ready for that kind of success, and I didn't have plans for moving forward. I didn't have plans to become a world class poker player or to become a businessman or anything like that. I just had experience and success with grinding mid stakes tournaments, and maybe subconsciously I just wanted to get back to the grind, and maybe that's why I made those ridiculously bad investments, trusted the wrong guys, etc. I'm not sure this is what happened, but this is an idea I have in mind, and probably is worth talking about.
Yeah, it's actually the exact demographic that I coach now one-on-one. So when I coach, guys who are playing low to mid stakes, I do it in a group format because that's like the most economical for everybody and the most like time efficient. But in my one-on-one practice where I work with like relatively high level guys that's not necessarily cheap, um, I aim to help people in exactly that situation because how expensive are kind of, I don't know, mindset leaks or like not knowing what to do with yourself when you just won $1 million is a dangerous problem to have, and it's a very like important problem to solve for somebody's life. I mean, I personally have had 500K swings, and it's like it helped me know how to help someone. I haven't had 7-figure swing, but I mean, it's kind of the same, in a way. It's like you're like, Jesus Christ, how did I allow that to happen? And it's difficult, and you're not the first person I've talked to either who won $1 million and then was like almost like I've had people tell me they were like almost suicidally depressed because they just had no direction. And people like to say like, oh, like, how could you be unhappy? But I mean, it's just people need a purpose, And honestly, it's super fulfilling for me to have deep conversations and talk to people about their purpose and what they really want to do with their life. And I think my biggest ripple effect is helping, intelligent, smart, resourceful people like find how they can do something bigger. Because a lot of people that their biggest limitation is they surpassed what they thought was possible for them. So now that's like a midlife crisis, like, oh, I've peaked and our life's downhill from here. And how do you become like, not necessarily Elon Musk, who's like, literally like top person alive, maybe like maybe an alien, but like, how do you become that version of yourself? Like, how does anyone have the confidence to be like a Tony Robbins or somebody, who charges $1 million a year as a coach and has a huge waiting list of clients? Like, how do you get to that level where you can really make a massive impact in the world? Like, building schools in Africa, or like donating tons of money to feeding the homeless. And how can you get to that level where you really solve big complex problems in society? And like a lot of people, they need someone for that transition, to make it from, okay, I've accomplished my goals here, what's next? And we see it in sports. It's super precarious position to have accomplished all your goals and not know where to go, and that's kind of like so basically exactly who I aim to work with one-on-one, because it's something I've been through and something I've seen is really life defining. Like, you're forever changed by going through the up and down that you went through. And I think you've rebounded incredibly well. And a lot of those lessons, it's like it was worth the cost of admission, but it would have been better not to have to pay it, right?
Yeah, like I can imagine like um one problem with being a mindset coach is that the people need you when they cannot really afford your help. Like many times, especially with poker players, don't you experience something like that normally people need you
Yeah.
or realize that they need you when they are on a downswing and they don't really want to spend, but don't think about or not think consciously enough when they are on an upswing, or this that like in based on my experience, working on your mindset should be a persistent activity during your career, whether you are in an upswing or a downswing. What's your take on this?
Yeah. So Patrick Leonard actually like said this perfectly. I asked him for a testimonial after like 2 or 3 years at BitB, and he basically said, "Listen, I actually think the people who need mindset coaches the most, especially like me, someone who's done so much work like around ego and stuff like this, is people who win. You know, because when you're winning and you're riding high on like a 400K upswing or whatever, you're making decisions that if they're like not optimal because you're full of yourself or whatever, they're way more expensive. You're making bad game selection, like losing 5% a game or something, like, or like taking on volatility you don't need to take on. It's like mathematically way more expensive, and the benefit to your profits if you work on your mindset is huge, and the value for you is huge. But a lot of these people, they have the ego blockage, right? Because a lot of people who get successful, they do it on the strength of like trying to fuel their ego. I mean, even Michael Jordan was like a massive egomaniac, and like he became one of the goats. There's a lot of, I guess I don't want to say unhealed because it sounds like almost condescending, but there's a lot of like non-ego transcended people who are very successful in competitive environments because they care about competition. And I'm not going to lie, a big reason I'm not in love with poker anymore is because I couldn't give an absolute shit less about being better than another person in a math problem. You know what I mean? Like I get no satisfaction from that. Like in terms of like, I'm better than somebody else. That's not where value comes from. So my ideal client is someone who is open, right? I do so much better working with someone who wants to learn, and I don't try to like, there's just I don't have the time to try to like explain to somebody why my marketing could probably be better, right? And I think in general it is super difficult to reach people who, are the ones who really need it the most. So it's a very valid point, and I think the best thing that helps is when people who are high stakes and have had success come out and talk about like how much it helped them. So that's why I was super, super grateful when like Jungle Man, who's literally one of the best in the world, we worked together for like 6 months over the last year, and he talked about it. I post on my Instagram pretty often, like just how much he thought it was helpful and how much he recommended to other people, even though he didn't need me to become a success at all, right? He's already a friggin' end boss, but he got a ton of value from it. So I think that's important. And I also, for low stakes guys, that's why I do a group program, right? That's why I do group coaching. I don't want to be, selling my time for less than I think it's worth. And I don't want someone to be spending money they can't afford either. So I really try to like, okay, why don't we learn together? Why don't we have a community? Why don't we use tools that make sense? Things like this are amazing. Group coachings in my community, I think, are amazing. Letting people coach other people. I even trained a mindset coach in my community who sells one-on-one sessions for like $75, right? And I think working with him is an amazing opportunity because it's way cheaper than working with me. And you don't need, I don't need Tony Robbins teaching me about my finances. I can find someone like, you don't need like to go for the guy who's working at a certain level when you have like questions at the kind of rudimentary level. If you need to learn how to do your habits, you don't need to ask the best habit person in the world personally, but you can read their book, you can listen to their podcast, you can listen to something like this.
Yeah. I'm just trying to read the message from Hattie. You could lower your prices after this big score, James. He's just joking.
Yeah.
No, honestly, like in my experience, like I had like 2 private sessions with you or 3, and actually changed my entire attitude ever since. Like I'm not sure if you remember, but my biggest issue at the time when I reached out to you was that I had kind of a fear from the series, the scoops and W coops, because obviously those are periods with very high variance and I was very steady winner between all the series, but when the series came, they just started off super bad. Usually, obviously it happens because the fields are huge, so it's very natural not to ever get there. During my 15 or 14-year career, I made one final table of WCOOP and one final table of SCOOP, so which was quite shocking for me. But on the other side, in live events, I won 3 of the biggest final tables I ever entered. So this is just different forms of variance. And so what happened to me is that you gave me some very basic advices, like first of all, you helped me realize like what kind of thoughts I have, and help me recognize them as fast as possible. One sentence I still have in my mind, in my ears echoing, is that don't go down the rabbit hole. Don't go down the rabbit hole. Realize when you start sliding down to the rabbit hole, and then do some conscious acts, like straightening your sitting position and taking a big breath, and find some joy in the challenge that you are facing. That, hey, SCOOP started, I lost the first 25 flips I played, and I'm going to be the one who takes this challenge better than anyone else. I'm going to take this challenge better than any other professional at my table. And my sole goal is to keep my creative mind, keep not just not to tilt, but to stay creative, to look for opportunities to apply my reads to play at my very best. And sometimes just a few words like this, like I received from you, this just changed my entire attitude. And combined with the fact, my experience with my latest SCOOP, went in an absolute brutal way. One sec. So before the SCOOP, I had a very successful period. I won over, I don't know, 100K in the first few months of the year, and then SCOOP started. And all of a sudden, from the very first day of SCOOP, EVBB and normal BB just started departing from each other, and huge gap occurred. And I literally had no winning session in the first 2 weeks of the SCOOP. And before the SCOOP, I thought to myself that I will create a list of challenges I have, or missions I have to complete every day. And these are missions which only depended on myself, like switching up the computer the maximum 15 minutes after the last table is closed, so my last tournament is finished. So not to stay there and tell bad beat stories to anyone, or rail or anti-rail anyone, just to make myself feel more miserable. So I first of all, I had to switch off the computer after 15 minutes, and then I had to do some reading, non-poker reading, from an actual paperback book, just to help my mind detach from playing poker. And this was a preparation for a better sleeping experience. And also I did some very little yoga, some stretching before I went to sleep. And then I went to sleep. And then the next day I did some light jogging and some relaxation, like 10 minutes of relaxation and 10 minutes of meditation as well. And that was it. And during the session, my main goal was not to go down the rabbit hole. This was my main mission, my only mission. And I managed to fulfill this, or put check marks to these missions every day. And miraculously, this is kind of like this was not necessary to happen, but on the very last day of Scoop, I found myself with 10 big blinds with one remaining tournament, and from 10 big blinds I started God moding, and I ended up scoring for 30k, breaking even during the scoop, and I also had this experience of growing as a poker player, of becoming much stronger than I earlier was, and one of the cool things about this was that earlier, whenever I asked anyone about like what my main weakness was as a poker player, almost everyone replied to me that your mental game. You think too much, you worry too much, you think too much about yourself, etc. And I kind of believe this, that okay, I'm the guy who is weak in the mental parts of poker. And after this experience with the scoop, that I faced a huge shitstorm, and I stayed strong, and I defeated myself. I completed the missions I set to myself, and this changed my self, the high views, high saw myself. Like from now on, I'm a strong guy mentally, and this realization just helped me switch. And from there on, it was super easy to stay strong in the same challenges as earlier. It was borderline or hard to stay strong. I hope you get what you mean. What I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah. So one thing is, which is super important, is your how you perceive yourself, what image you hold about yourself. Because as long as like I'm not sure if you're familiar with how your brain is constructed. Like the left side of your brain is more responsible for basic jobs like calculating how much 2 + 2 is, and this kind of stuff, while the right side of your brain is more responsible for organizing these inputs into a coherent image, and applying filters to make future processing of this information easier. And these kind of filters become actually you with time growing. So when you start as a child, you don't really have these kind of filters, so every new information is absorbed, and then later you start dropping some information based on the filters, based on the experiences you collected earlier. So if you start implementing a new habit, and as we are close to the new year, probably many of our viewers have New Year resolutions, and probably we can talk about that as well. And this is important for that reason as well. Is that if you want to change, and the right side, you have to convince the right side of your brain. If your self-image, if the right side of your brain blocks your desire to change, blocks or sabotages your efforts to change, then you will have a much harder time completing the same challenges compared to when your right side of your brain actually supports you. So as soon as I believed that I'm strong mentally, I became 10 times stronger. But as long as I believed I was weak mentally, my mind was much faster to accept that actually I failed in a mental challenge. So yeah, probably you can sum this up better. And do you get what I mean?
Oh yeah, I mean the what is it? The 80-20 on habits is you act in alignment with who you believe you are. So if you think you're a coward, you be a coward. If you think you're tough, you'll act tough until you get punched in the face, get some blunt force trauma, and then you become afraid, right? Like this is how the mind works. It's very easy to act in alignment with who you believe you are, and it's very hard to act out of alignment with who you believe you are. So like plenty of poker players think they're a degen, so they can't behave themselves because it feels like it's not like them. And plenty of poker players, think they're lazy, so they are. And it's really like all of this is optional. And it's just like you just never, became the computer programmer of your own internal computer. And this is like really, for me, the part of what I do that I'm most passionate about. I mean, okay, sure, I can help you focus on your poker tables. I mean, don't mind my timing outs, but you know what I mean? Like, but for me, the real passion is helping people realize they're not the person they thought they were, and that they can be the person they would like to be. And like, imagine the impact on the world when someone has an amazing idea, but they don't have the courage to do it, and you help them see themselves as the person who actually gets it done, and then they do it. It impacts the world, right? Like, imagine being like Elon Musk's life coach, and like now we have Tesla. So for me, this is where I derive the most passion from in transformation. So like in my program, I take people through a journey where it's like in the beginning, I'm teaching them new level of awareness. So they start to notice those rabbit holes you talked about, you know, when you have the opportunity to start thinking about something that's never been helpful. And, you know, I teach people, like, when it comes to thoughts, stop acting if it's true and ask if it's useful. Like, many things are true, or many, you know, there's plenty of things in the world you can think about, but like, you know, there's a rabbit hole in the YouTube comments section. There's a rabbit hole in the Facebook comments. There's a rabbit hole of the opening the Instagram app or the Netflix app. There's many, many rabbit holes, you know, in your mind and in the world. And once you start to become aware of where your time is going and observing, you can start to wield it like a flashlight, a lightsaber, whatever you want to call it. Like, now I'm in control of where I put my attention. And that's the only decision you ever really have in your life, is what are you going to pay attention to at the time you're alive for? And, you know, once you're there, you can start to look at this inner work, you know, see you have wounds. Oh, I have a wound because I lost $1 million. Or, oh, I have a wound because I never had success in this thing and I got disappointed many times. Okay, I have this trauma, this wound, this issue that's holding me back. I have this belief about myself. Okay, let's clear all that shit out. And once you start to clear all that shit out, then you can start to install the desired beliefs. And, you know, once you install the identity you want to have, right? And this, you need some techniques. You know, you can't just do it at the level of mind. Like, oh, I think I can. You need to be able to activate emotion. You need to believe it. You need to get pumped up, fired up. I mean, both like be able to meditate and be pristine and leave yourself behind, but then also like jump up and down and fucking scream and shout and really embody that new vision and believe in it. Because without emotion, like you don't, emotion's like the electricity that runs through the wires, you know? So when we install a new identity paradigm in your life, it is life-changing, you know. And most people are too comfortably, like, just like unconscious participants in their own life, you know. And I try to help people become conscious architects of their own life. And I feel like the difference is enormous. And this is like where, this is the kind of work I really enjoy to spend my time on. And this is something that you can tell from the way I'm talking. I'm way more pumped up about this than like, okay, so queen 4 offsuit wins like 1/10 of the big blind here if I limp, but if I open it, it wins like, you know, 0.11. I mean, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. I made over $1 million in my career playing poker, through knowing things like that other people didn't know. But at the end of the day, like, which one I could talk about till, like, you know, if I didn't need any money anymore at all, ever, you know, if I was a billionaire, I would still be a coach. If I was a billionaire, I might still play poker, but I doubt I'd be in the labs, you know, studying how many tenths of big blind one hand wins versus another.
Yeah. Like, where can people reach you? Do you mind typing into the chat, like, your,
oh yeah, sure.
I know you have a Discord server as well.
Yeah.
Poker Mindset Master.
Oh, I'm not allowed to post links. I just got yelled at by Nightbot.
Oh, okay.
So
then just.
But I can post them to you on Discord, and you can post them.
Yeah.
So the thing about my Discord is actually we have a public channel, but it's incredibly limited because our Discord is part of a private coaching group.
Mm-hmm.
So if you guys want more information about that, best thing to do is either DM, I guess if you write in the public chat, or if you just DM me on Instagram. Like, if anyone doesn't have an Instagram, then I guess you can send me a message on Discord, and I will put you in contact with my assistant. But basically what we do is we found there's a different level of discourse between a private community where everyone kind of knows each other face to face, and it's more in alignment with places I worked, like BitB, where it's like a small community of people and they know each other. And there's loads of communities out there that are, you know, free and large, and we wanted to create something a bit more intimate. So that's I can post a link to my Discord, but as I said, it's really just a public chat where you could say, like, I would like more information. I'll have my assistant get in contact with you. It's not like a big active free community. if you would like to follow me and learn from me, the best thing to do is follow me on Instagram and send me a DM and ask to be subscribed to my emails. So either the Poker Mindset Mastery Instagram or the my personal Instagram, which is just James Whittet.
Yeah, one thing I wanted to cover is like, what's your best take about being successful with New Year resolutions? For me, I recently found an important element of these resolutions which I used to miss earlier, and that was the concept of low bars. So let me mention this, and I'm sure that you have a lot to add later on. But the concept of low bar is that if you want to build a new habit, like I'm doing now with running every day. Running every day, I don't do that in a way that like I used to do. Like earlier in the earlier years, I had goals like running 1 kilometer or 2 kilometers every day, some real challenge. But this inevitably came to a point, to a day when I felt sick or lazy or just couldn't motivate myself, didn't have the time, whatever, and I missed the day. And then I was more likely to miss the next day as well. And then my whole resolution went down. And what I found recently is the concept of low bar, which is about setting a very low bar for your habit. Like for me at this moment is to run around the block, which is like running 200 meters, which is really not a challenge. Yeah, I can do it even if I have a super busy day. I can do that because it takes like 5 minutes, and this way I can this helps me get through the biggest obstacle, the biggest challenge of like putting on my running shoes and actually start running. And once I'm running, I still have the chance to run more than my low bar, and most of the times I actually do run much more than my low bar, and this also helps me actually get to the streets every day and build and strengthen this new habit of mine. And I started this like 70 days ago. I'm not even really counting, like 3 months, and I have no trouble completing this. Like maybe 2 days a week, I only run the minimum, the low bar, 200 meters, but most of the days I run over 1 kilometer, over 2 kilometers, etc. And then I enjoy it much more, because if I run more, I do it because I like it, and do it because I'm enjoying it. And I think yeah, for me this was the breakthrough. But I guess you have some more thoughts to add to the New Year resolutions.
I mean, you picked the topic that I'm an absolute nerd for, so I have like an awful lot of things I can say about this. I'm gonna try to cherry pick the best ones. Start out, like you said, not down the rabbit hole helped you a lot. I'm gonna give you another nugget that I picked up from someone that I think can help you, and that's just this idea: never miss twice. I think you're already kind of past that point, but for a lot of guys, if you're trying to install new habits and you're trying to make it easy, like if you just never miss twice, you can do it a lot more than you're doing it now, right? And yeah, I like the idea of a low bar, because I mean, the first minute, say you're trying to meditate every day. If you sit down and meditate for 30 seconds, you'll probably do like more. But if you think you have to meditate for 20 minutes as a beginner, that's intimidating. And for me, I have the same thing. Like if I have to sit down for 20 minutes to meditate, I'll basically always do it. But if I have to meditate for an hour, I'm much more likely to be like, oh, I really don't have an hour. And you know, for some people, just say you'll meditate for 5 minutes. Like you'll do the daily hit headspace for 5 minutes, or the daily waking up for 10 minutes. And once you actually do it, you realize you like it and you might want to do it more. So I like low bar for this reason. And I actually have this concept with a lot of my guys. We call it a minimum viable routine, where you have two versions of your routine: the version you do when you have time and the version you do when you don't have time. And that way you kind of always get the credit. So these things I think can be very helpful factors to consider when setting your goals. Most people, they definitely say, oh, I'm going to work out 5 days a week when they haven't worked out at all, do it for a week and then quit. And it's actually really annoying how many people will say, oh, I'm just like an all or nothing person. Like, no, you're not. You're just untrained. You know what I mean? And you hold a really limiting belief about yourself that you can only do something all in or not. And you've never really decided to install it from belief and act in accordance with it. And, give it the time for your brain to rewire and to become a, much more healthy, balanced person, right? If you go through life thinking you're an all or nothing person, like, congratulations, you will be. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy, but it doesn't make it smart. Another thing you talked about was like the difficulty, like putting your running shoes on being the hardest part, right? This is really funny you said this, because I personally think the absolute best person to follow on Instagram, on Twitter, and read his book is James Clear, the author of Atomic Habits. I mean, he is the habit boss, in my opinion.
James Clear.
James Clear, he wrote Atomic Habits. So, if you haven't read this book, buy this book, read this book. He explains so many things. Or listen to his conversation with Sam Harris in the Waking Up app. It's phenomenal. He talks about how habits have a cue, and then they have, for negative habits, you see the potato chips on the counter and you're going to eat them, right? But if the potato chips are at the bottom of your food pantry, you'd have to really want potato chips to go get them and dig them out. If the Xbox is always on and the controller's on the table, you're going to play it. But if the Xbox, you unplug it after every use and put it in the drawer, you're way less likely to play unless you really want to play. Don't have Instagram on your home screen. Don't have have the applications on your desktop that you want to use. Make the things you want to do easy. Running shoes by the door, socks already in them, MP3 player, everything next to them. And then make the stuff you don't want to do a bit more challenging. Instead of keeping the beer in the first row of the fridge, put it in the back behind something. These things make a massive difference that people don't realize. So for me in my business, every night before, this was one of the biggest difference makers in my efficiency, was every night before I go to bed, I don't leave it to the last minute because I'll be too tired, but when I decide I'm done working for the day, I make it absolutely idiot proof what I'm going to do tomorrow morning when I wake up. Because that way when I wake up, it's right there. It's okay, I do my routine, I sit to the computer, and boom, I know exactly what I'm doing. And every single successful 7-figure entrepreneur does the same thing. I've learned about it from so many people, and it made a massive difference in my life. And if you don't do this, if you're making your to-do list the day of, you're just being silly because you've made it. Now you're oh, what should I do? Okay. And poker players think they're taking away your freedom when you give some organization to your life. And the reality is, structure creates freedom. Me doing this means I get done the things I want to get done, and I can kick it in the afternoon, go meet friends, enjoy my life, because I don't have this inner conflict all the time that if I'm having fun, I'm not doing something, and if I'm doing something, I'm not having fun, right? I'm able to do both. So definitely make things easy for yourself you want to do more of, make things more difficult that you want to do less of, set goals you can actually hit. The first moments of doing something is the hardest, right? I like this idea of setting low goals and having a stretch goal, additional points if you go further, but the amount that you absolutely must do is just the amount to get you started. Because if you get started, you'll go longer. If you meditate for 3 minutes, you might be oh, that was nice. I think I'll do another 10. But if you think, oh, I have to meditate for 13 minutes, you're oh, I don't have time, which of course you have time, but your mind will try to argue with you. One last nugget I'll share is I really like having a timer. So I use an app called Routinery, and it for when I want to do several things, I want to meditate, do breath work, take a cold shower, whatever, it just has a timer that goes from one thing to the next thing to the next thing to the next thing. And it just doesn't give my brain any time to bicker and wonder, linking habits together. I do this, I get up, I brush my teeth, I go drink a glass of water, I sit down, I meditate. You do that in the same order every day for 3 months, you become wired for that. But if most people, it's so kind of frustrating how just non-optimized they allow themselves to be. It's they just wake up and oh, I don't know, I guess I'll do this. I guess they have no idea how much energy and attention they waste just not writing a script for yourself. And imagine if every single time you wanted to run a hand through PO, you had to code PO solver all over again, instead of just having the script and like, oh, hit enter and it works. So the more you start to think of yourself as like a bioelectric supercomputer that can be programmed with scripts and then write intelligent scripts for yourself to run, like the way more effective you can be. And it's actually a lot of fun as well, because the least fun thing I think most people do is, mindlessly scroll, check out, numb themselves, like, be running a really terrible program in their mind and in their life. And being intentional and conscious about this stuff makes life way more fun. And absolute last thing on this topic is, if you want to really crush your habits in 2021, Luigi just shared a link there. It's the third link. It's just before this live stream next week. So this live stream is at 7 p.m. CET, right? We'll be at 6 p.m. CET. We'll be doing a 1-hour live event. I will be posting the link through my email and through Instagram. But we do a live event on Zoom, and we will be doing like a meditation and an embodiment practice and kind of an activation to really help with this identity stuff, right? Because ultimately, you can prove to yourself who you are over and over and over and over and over again by doing the habits. And it's like building the bricks from the bottom, and it does work. But you can like supercharge that process by owning a shift in your identity, which is like what Luigi was able to do when he decided at that pit of that bad run, like, no, I'm going to power through this. And he did it. And afterward, he's like, I'm not mentally weak. And now it was like, boom, he could show up with that like power. And if you can have the small wins that compound over time, coupled with the leapfrog events, that's going to be ultimately the highest ROI. And this event that I'm going to do next week, just 1 hour before this broadcast, is one of those like explosion events where afterward you're going to have some momentum to play with. And if you work with the right habits heading out of that event, you're going to be on a jump start for 2021.
Great one. What we have a few more questions from Yuri on Twitter. Yuri,
Sure.
When on huge downswing, you should keep playing more or taking a break. I have my own take on this, but do you have a general answer to this, or?
It's player dependent, and also where you're at in your career dependent. Honestly, if I was in a huge downswing, I would get a coaching session from my assistant coach, Michael, because they're pretty cheap, and I think he can help you a lot by delving into the specifics of your situation. But as far as a general answer for anyone who might be watching, when you're on a big downswing, I think a lot of players don't take as many breaks as they should. And it's really hard to have perspective on if you're honestly playing well, like when you're in the thick of it and you're chasing losses and you're emotional. So long as you're emotional, you shouldn't be playing. And when you have compound tilt, chances are, unless you're really, really strong mindset, you will become emotional faster. As soon as things start to go against you, start telling the story. Now, if you want to power through, you can do what Luigi did and what other guys I've known have done, which is like stand in the fire and learn not to burn, if that makes sense. Like, you're going to have a ton of opportunities for growth when you show up. And it's so easy to get drawn into the story because you've been so unfortunate and things have gone against you so much. And you just like continue to bring yourself back. But you absolutely, if you don't have a good intention about your play, and if your goal is not process oriented about how to stay in the moment and not fall into the story, then it can just be super expensive. It depends what continuing to play means to you. If it means practicing, playing as well as you can, and not falling into the stories and quitting your sessions if it's cash games the moment you do fall into the stories, and trying to go a little bit further each day while still playing logical, rational poker, fine, go for it. Test yourself and grow. But if for you, it means like playing while you're emotional, that's just lighting money on fire. If you can't stay off tilt, like, one of my good friends was a heads up 50-100 reg at PLO, and he just said to me, like, if I think when I start to play, if I lost 3 buy-ins the first 3 hands, I'd be upset, I don't play. Because what are you going to do? You register a whole schedule of tournaments, you bust like the 2 biggest ones. Now you're just going to play emotional the rest of the day? Like, that, you can't do that. It's just stupid. So unless the more work you do, the more you don't have to take a break. But most people don't do work and keep playing. So that's why I say the advice for most people is take a huge break, get some perspective, and fix some stuff, and you'll know when you're ready to play. You won't need to ask anybody. But if you can't, it's a pretty tough situation if you can't afford to take a break, because that usually the more you can't afford to do it, the more you absolutely have to, because you really can't afford not to.
Yeah, like basically you covered everything I wanted to share, tell about this. So another question we have, actually it's from Hedy, I think in our Discord channel, is how to start meditating. This is quite a frequent question because everyone hears that.
I think he clarified it, like he finds it really hard even with guided, such as Headspace. Like, what I'll share is that I used to think I had like really bad ADHD, and I used to struggle to close my eyes for 30 seconds with a meditation timer. And when I did 5 minutes, it felt like an hour. It was torture. But here I am, like 10 years later. I'm a meditation coach. I've meditated for like 6 hours in a day before, like a retreat. So knowing that, you should be able to tell yourself that don't make excuses and don't go down a rabbit hole. No matter how bad your focus is, you could become like a enlightened monk if you so choose, right? Not saying you have to, but the more resistance you have to doing something, generally the more growth is on the other side. So when Luigi had a lot of resistance to working on his mental game, he suffered for a long time. And then when he did it, after everyone telling him, "Oh, it's your weakest thing, he felt like massively empowered, right? If you think like, "Oh, I can't sit still, like I just can't stop thinking," wow, how untrained your mind is. Pretty important to train it. You know what I mean? The guy who should, like, maybe doesn't need to meditate is the guy who's like, I'm present all the time, and it's meditating is fine for me. It's easy. So almost like, why do it? I don't even need to. And I don't know how many people roaming the earth are like that. But basically, the harder it is for you, the more you need to do it. I mean, if you had a dog that was just going absolutely nuts, like pissing and shitting all over the floor, he really needs to be trained. And if your mind is like an animal and it can't stop jumping to this and jumping to that and jumping to this and jumping to that, have you thought about this? What do you want to eat for lunch? And I think this guy's talking about me. Like, bro, you need to fucking meditate. So like, don't give yourself another choice. Is make it the first thing you do. Do a minimum 5 minutes and be okay with sucking at it. Like, that's the most important thing. Like, it's okay to suck at it. I fucking sucked at it. Like, suck at it. And like, be like, oh, I suck at this, so I'm going to do it. I'm never going to miss, because if I suck at it and I keep not doing it, I'll always suck at it. But if I suck at it and I decide to be okay with sucking at it, like every time you realize you're distracted and you bring your mind back to the present moment, that is a victory. And it really is that simple. Meditation, it's not a bad meditation when you sit down and it's hard and you're distracted and you struggle to bring your focus back. That's what it looks like. Like being distracted, not realizing for 2.5 minutes, and then going, oh shit, I'm thinking about pizza. That is fucking meditating, believe it or not. It's like if you go to the gym, that moment where your arms are shaking and then you can't lift anymore. That's the part that matters, not the first 5 reps where you're crushing it. Those are only designed to get your muscle to the part where it's like shaking and wobbling so you can get stronger. Meditation is, it's sitting there to wait till your mind starts to be really challenging and work on it in those phases. So for you, you're like lucky because you just get to sit down for 10 seconds and it's already hard. You're already getting better. For people who have been doing this a long time, we might have to sit for an hour before our mind really starts, fucking with us and giving us lots of stories and bringing up stuff from the past, and that's more time. But you get to benefit by sitting there for 5 minutes because you're immediately flushed with like, oh my God, like look at all these thoughts, and you can like, okay, just gonna breathe, So realize it's growth. Don't compare yourself to what you think you should be doing, and just fucking do it, man. If you can't get yourself to cooperate for 5 minutes, like it's gonna be a tough life.
Yeah, actually being forgiving with failure, carving back to New Year resolutions. That's another important element. Like you mentioned, not to miss twice. Or what was your first advice? Yeah, many people
don't miss twice.
Yeah, because simply if you start like hammering yourself just for missing one day your new build habit, then chances are you are going to fail. But if you say that, hey, yep, this is a new habit I'm trying to take on. And I missed one day, but I'm not going to miss the next one. And it's super normal that I failed on one day, but I just want to keep working on this. Then chances are you are going to succeed. So, yep.
Most people would really, really, really strongly benefit from just taking absolutely all the venom and self-judgment out of like analysis of their process. So like say you say I'm going to meditate for 20 minutes 5 days a week and you do it one day. Most people don't even look at it, just like never going to like forget it. I didn't do it. That's because it hurts for them to think about how they couldn't do what they wanted to do. But if it was a robot that you programmed and it didn't do what it was supposed to do, you go, oh, let's change this wire, let's change that. So like if you could just treat yourself like almost like as if it was your son or like your friend, it's not you. And you're like, oh, okay, 20 minutes was too much for this guy. Like as a coach, it's easy. It's like, oh, 20 minutes was too much for you. Cool, do 10. Do 5, and you're not allowed to leave your bed until you do it. So either stay in bed all day or you meditate for 5 minutes. How about this? You're not allowed to pee until at all of the day, or you're not allowed to eat until you've meditated for 5 minutes. You'll fucking do it. Or make a free roll with your friend. If I don't meditate for 10 minutes within the first hour I'm awake, I owe you $50. It's going to be an expensive habit, and anytime you can make $50 in 10 minutes, you'll do it. So, there's so many ways to make it easy for yourself. And that's exactly what we do. Make it easy. Give yourself no other choice. The moment you realize you're starting to have resistance, if you drastically move toward that activity instead, you make a big difference. This is one of my quotes on my Instagram. The moment you you realize, it's just like another level of realization. Just like in meditation, you realize you're distracted, you bring your attention back. In life, you realize you're procrastinating, like bartering with yourself about when you're going to do it or why. Just shut the fuck up, sit down, and do it in that moment. It's not actually hard. You make it hard, and if you get in the habit of realizing you don't have to let your patterns from the past be in charge, and you have this new like pattern interrupt, like, oh, I'm doing it again, and you just clap your hands and sit down where you are and do it, you will start to build a new habit, and set restrictions, set benefits if you do it, keep the time low. Like there's all these things, but you unify these and you just don't quit. If you try and it doesn't work, you just tinker and tinker until you find that sweet spot that you can commit to. And the thing that most people are shy about is they don't realize right now your habits may be so poor that you can only start to meditate for 3 minutes a day. But if you would do 3 minutes a day for 2 weeks and then go to 5, in 6 months you could be doing 20 minutes a day, no problem. But if you try to start at 20 minutes just because you think it shouldn't be hard, you may just find that 6 months from now you meditated twice.
Yeah, like for starters, or for guys who don't really know what meditation is and what the biggest benefit of being someone who meditates every day is that it basically trains the center which is responsible for center in your brain which is responsible for your focus or setting your focus, right? Or how would you explain this? Probably this way, right? And so it makes you more conscious about all your decisions during your day, like what do you pick in the supermarket, or realizes that you are sitting in a bad position much sooner, or how would you break it down?
So I go over this a lot in my program in Poker Mindset Mastery, and definitely if you guys are poker players, you're interested in meditation, you want to build this habit, I recommend you to go through that program, because I've got meditations that I guide you through my own voice, and like it's super tailored for exactly like these goals of poker meditation and how to unify those. But if I had to give a quick synopsis, like meditation, it changes your brain in such a way that you start to see things that happen automatically now sooner. So everything you're trying to improve in your life, it's like all of a sudden you see the thing before the thing. You ever had that experience where you're playing poker and like you realize you should fold, but you're already clicking call? That kind of space starts to exist, where instead you realize you want to fold and you hear that message from your gut or wherever it's coming from before you've like made the automatic response. Or, you know, you have a situation in your life where somebody says something to you and it's upsetting, and instead of responding with like this, you know, anger, you see yourself getting activated. But there's a space where you can choose not to escalate the situation. And like, meditation creates this space, and this space is, you know, really the only way to break out of your patterns. You know, awareness is the answer. Like, if you want to quote me on something, it's that. Like, whatever your problem is, awareness is going to be the answer. You know, like, you can't solve something you don't understand. And most people have a problem, like, oh, I tilt all the time. Like, they don't even realize when it starts. It's like they're trying to stop a bomb from exploding, but it's already exploded. You need to like wet the fuse, and the fuse is over here. So it's really important to raise your awareness. Otherwise, like, it's so profoundly life-changing that it's like you realize your life before, it's almost like you were a zombie or asleep. Like, you look at the way you used to live and you thought you had free will, and then you're like, oh my God, like, I was responding to a program, I was responding to my conditioning. These people, you know, what was said to me when I was young and what I watched on TV and how my parents were. And the level to which you're conditioned is mind-boggling. And it's like the more you wake up from it a little bit, you realize two things. Oh my God, there's so much further to go. And oh my God, so many people aren't even like started. And it's honestly, it's basically, I think, one of the most important things you can do in your life. And I think it's such a, one of the most like high predictors of what's going to make a person happy is like studying what makes other people happy. And meditation is like very, very well reviewed. Like, if you looked at a cross section of people who meditate and a cross section of people who don't, it's just like you're going to see a massive difference between people you like and admire and people like who really aren't doing much for anyone beside themselves, and maybe even hurting themselves, not realizing it. And just like, if meditation was a pill that you could take, you know, if it was a drug that you could prescribe, like, here's the benefits of meditation, it's, you know, $1 a day, it's some supplement made by some friggin' company, you'd be buying it every day, like, oh, my new alpha brain, whatever. But the fact is, like, there is no shortcut. You have to sit down and close your eyes and work through it yourself. Like, no one can go to the gym for you. There's no plastic surgery for this, you know, you have to do it. But it's like basically more important than everything else.
Yeah, one last question, and I let you go. We already been here for more than, or close to 3 hours now. Yeah, from Insane Clown in our Discord channel, he asked for the best tip or best habits to pick up if you are on a downswing. I guess the best habit is probably picking up meditation. Do you have any other tip, or not necessarily habit, but any other tip, like how to deal with a downswing, assuming that you are normally a winning poker player?
Yeah, like, stop resisting it, because you're not in control. And most poker players, they don't want to be on a downswing, and then they suffer every single day that they are. Like, if you're on a downswing, you're on a downswing. If you're losing, you're losing. The downswings don't really exist, right? In a sense that, like, every day you play, it's a brand new day, and it doesn't know what happened yesterday. So, like, your downswing is a story you tell yourself that only exists in your own mind. You know, if you show up to play today, you're not in an upswing, you're not in a downswing, you're just a person making decisions in the moment, right? But you've constructed this whole fucking story because your graph goes like this. And it's absolutely stupid, but it's human nature, right? So if you want to challenge yourself, like, if you want to learn from this, understand, number one, it's not in your control. And number two, like, use what life is giving you, because there's variance in life. I mean, life is a gambling game. Life is the gambling game. And when you're in your life and you're faced with difficult times, which everyone, like, we're all going to lose people in our life that we love, people are going to die, like, you know, things in the world could get worse, like, things are happening all the time. Use it to grow. So you're being challenged right now. If you can, double down on investing in your mindset. And yes, absolutely work on your strategy game, because no matter how good your mindset is, if you're playing the wrong ranges all the time, you're going to lose, right? But assuming that you're reasonably a decent player and you're working on your game all the time, which, I mean, just has to be a habit, then if you're suffering, all suffering is mind created. So anytime you're unhappy, you could do better. Every time you're suffering, like, you could do better. So really embrace the learning, like learn how to let things go. Let this moment teach you something so that the next time you have a downswing, the next time variance hands you losses day after day, it doesn't hurt. Because if you objectively look at the life of a poker player, you're going to lose a bunch, and it'd be better not to suffer. It'd be better just, you know, not be affected and to study. And like that may be a little bit idealistic, but like the height of your suffering shows you the depth of your work that you still have to do. So really, stoicism helped me a lot. Learning to focus on what I can control. You know, don't refresh your graph. Don't look at how many EVBB you're, you know, losing and tell the people about it. Focus on your strategy. Focus on where you're leaking chips. Focus on where you could be better, because that's completely within your circle of control. You know, looking at the variation between your graphs is nonsense. Like it doesn't teach you anything. So it's very, very important to kind of embrace these things. And it's okay to have emotions. If you resist having emotions, you'll continue to have them, and it'll hurt more. Like you have to actually surrender, and to surrender, you can't surrender. Like you have to like be surrendered. Like sit down. Like I might lose today. That's okay. You know, I might lose tomorrow. I might lose this month. I can't control it. I'm not trying to control it. I'm just trying to make good decisions at the poker table. That's my job. My job's quite simple. You know, every moment I'm playing, I get faced with a math problem, and I just solve that math problem, and I, you know, do my best to allow. It's almost like you have a little kid along for the ride with you, and you got to teach him that we don't cry over this stuff. And you know, and if he wants to cry, you don't like fucking shake him when he's crying. You like let him cry, okay? And when he's done, you're like, was that fun? You know, did you enjoy to cry? Let's try to not cry next time. You know, it's a balance between both learning how to not get emotionally activated, but at the same time, sometimes allowing yourself to be emotional. Like go on the lobby and scream if you want to, and then come back inside and stop having a pity party. It's this resistance when people like they're like 10% upset, but then they know they don't want to be upset, so they go like 20% upset, and then they're like, oh my god, I'm getting more upset, and it's just like this rabbit hole of getting upset. So it's like you both allow it so that it can go away, but you choose not to focus on it. You're like, oh, I'm feeling some, you know, you lose a big pot. You didn't want to lose that pot. You're like, oh, I'm feeling some like disappointment. Okay. Disappointment's a natural part of life. If I don't focus on it, it's going to go away. If I focus on the disappointment and wonder why it's there and why I'm not perfect and why I'm not the stoic master who doesn't get disappointed, I'll just be more disappointed in myself. So I'm just going to be disappointed that happened, but I'm going to understand from the past. I'm like, you know, I'm going to let this teach me letting go. I'm going to let this teach me acceptance. Let this teach me, you know, that I'm not in control.
All right, great one. Thank you so much for being here. Sorry for not progressing too much with the actual hands, so we only discussed a few. If you ever want to return, you are always welcome in this show. I guess I can confirm that by the chat as well. This was really enjoyable and valuable for me. Yeah, and yeah, I will check hand number 11 in HRC and post it into the Discord group. And yep, next week, I think we are going to continue with Hattie. But whenever you have time, just hit me on Discord and we can arrange another episode, probably with a little bit more strategy and a little bit less mental game. But as long as you enjoy it, so we do. So yep. Have a wonderful new year, everyone. And thanks for being here. Do you know how to raid, actually? I would like to.
How to what?
Raid another channel from Streamlabs.
I have no idea. I'm a fish at Twitch. I haven't used it before. But yeah, I just want to say thank you guys for showing up and for the discussion. Definitely like encourage you guys. You know, most of us are going after the success we want in poker because we like want the way that we think it's going to make us feel. But ultimately, like the decision to feel better, it lies inside of you all the time, even if whether you're rich or broke. And I definitely encourage you, whatever way you choose, to work on your mindset, like often and always. If you want to work with me, like, you know, feel free to get in touch and I can tell you more information. But, you know, start reading books, start meditating, start realizing that you don't need to wait for variance to make you happy, because it won't anyway. Even if you win $1 million, maybe the most depressed you've ever been in your life. So better work on your mindset so that if you do win a lot of money, you don't have to have the experience of losing it and having to start all over. So,
all right. Thank you once again for being here. And I'm going to try to rate All in Pav. CheckDecide use.
All right.
All right. Yeah. Yeah, it looks like we are raiding all in path. Okay, thank you for being here, James. And thank you guys. Bye bye. Ending the